Chapter 41:28. It's clearly you bunch of wicked servants who neglected my son. Now you're saying it's his fault. Empress Lu pointed at the young eunuch who was refuting and shrieked, "Guards, guards! Drag this dog slave away and flog him to death. Flog him to death." The eunuch was so frightened that he couldn't stop trembling. He scrambled to Prince Rue's feet and kowtowed loudly, "Your Highness, everything this servant said is true. All the royal maids and eunuchs in Huayang Hall can testify." The dethroned crown prince's temperament has changed greatly recently, so he won't tolerate us servants getting close to him. Every time this servant wants to follow him, we're all chased away by the dethroned crown prince. If we insist on following and infuriate the dethroned crown prince, we will even be beaten to death. Woo-woo. Nonsense, nonsense. The empress flew into a rage and hugged Rong Li's icy body. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she shrieked, "What dethroned crown prince? What dethroned crown prince? You actually dared to treat my son like this? Humiliate him like this? No wonder he doesn't want you to follow and serve him. This empress wants to kill you crafty dog slaves. Kill you all." Prince Li of the first rank couldn't help but roll his eyes. If this wasn't the dethroned crown prince, then what was? Ever since His Majesty dethroned this person of his crown prince title, he didn't confer a king or give any title, so what was he called if not the dethroned crown prince? The eunuchs and royal maids were all trembling in fright and rolled all over the ground, not daring to get up. Duan Yu, on the other hand, angrily rebuked impatiently, "Enough, if you want to make a fuss, then go back and make a fuss. What kind of scandal is this in the garden? It's you. It's you who killed my son. It's you." Empress Lu was like a rabid dog right now, biting whoever she caught. Everyone else was simply speechless at her. "Your Majesty the Empress, His Majesty was dying yesterday, so we stayed in His Majesty's bedchamber with His Highness the Crown Prince and didn't take a step out. During this time, His Highness the Crown Prince sat in front of His Majesty's bed and didn't go out at all. If he wanted to harm my Li, did he need to do it himself? Did he need to do it?" Empress Lu harshly as she hugged her darling son, she glared at Duan Yu like a madwoman. "Speak. Was it you? Was it you who harmed my Li?" Duan Yu coldly stared at her as a mocking smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Heh, you think too highly of your son. This consort wants to deal with him? A single finger would have sufficed. Is there a need for such a scheme? In reality, your son has already been killed by this consort. He has vanished into thin air. You won't even be able to get a single strand of hair. Lu and Xiang, this is just the beginning. You can't take it anymore?" Duan Yu's eyes were solemn and cold. "Don't worry, I will definitely make you beg for death." Every day, he was filled with regret and pain. How stupid of a crime he had committed. Empress Lu gazed at Duan Yu's peach blossom eyes that were overflowing with light and color. They were clearly so beautiful, yet they inexplicably made people feel a chill in their hearts. Soul returning pill, soul returning pill, soul returning pill. Empress Lu suddenly seemed to think of something. She hugged her son and hurriedly moved a few times. He looked at Prince Rue and Prince Li of the first rank with a face full of hope. Imperial uncles, save me. As long as I go to the Divine Province and beg for a soul-returning pill, I will definitely be able to save my son. My son is a cultivator. Although his cultivation wasn't high, his cultivation wasn't completely crippled, and his conscience wasn't damaged. As long as there was a soul-returning pill, he would definitely be able to save his son. I heard that the Crown Princess of the Divine Province knows how to refine a soul-returning pill. Adjustment failed. Continue tomorrow. Chapter 41:29. Prince Rui, Prince Li, royal uncles, please save your grandnephew. I can't die. I can't live without my son. Empress Lu cried until her face was pale and miserable. Prince Rue and Prince Li of the first rank glanced at her and said with a sigh, "The Divine Land is very far away from here. I heard that the Empress of the Divine Land woke up after taking the soul-returning pill made by the Crown Princess. But we didn't see it with our own eyes after all. It's just hearsay, so we don't know how much truth there is. Prince Rue said very calmly, "We can't take it completely seriously." "Prince Chen has it, Prince Chen has it." Prince Rue's eyes darkened. "Your Majesty the Empress. Please be careful with your words. Prince Chen isn't Prince Chen anymore. This is the current crown prince, the heir that His Majesty personally acknowledged. Could it be that Your Majesty wants to oppose the deceased His Majesty? You don't want to acknowledge His Highness the Crown Prince's identity?" "This imperial one doesn't have such intentions," the Empress said coldly. However, her attitude with Duan Yu was very stiff earlier, so she couldn't bring herself to directly ask for the soul-returning pill from Duan Yu. She could only pin her hopes on Prince Rue and Prince Li. However, the two princes were speechless at Empress Lu's emotional intelligence. "You said you were at odds with His Highness the Crown Prince in every way, and both sides were as incompatible as fire and water. You're already like this, yet you still have the nerve to ask him for such a precious pill? The soul-returning pill? Who didn't know how important that sacred medicine was to cultivators? If a dead person could be revived, not only would their previous cultivation be unaffected, but they might even improve a lot by chance. Do you think that with your relationship with His Highness the Crown Prince, he would give you such an important pill?" Prince Rue frowned and glanced at the Empress, pretending not to see the high hopes in her eyes. "What a joke. You can't ask His Highness the Crown Prince yourself, so you want him to sell his old face. Is this appropriate?" Prince Li also didn't speak. When the Empress saw this, she collapsed on the ground dejectedly. She hugged the dethroned Crown Prince Rong Li's icy body and sobbed, "Royal uncles, princes, is there no one who can help us, a widow and an orphan? My Li is dead." The Empress sobbed, and her voice became extremely choked. "Now that there is a way to save my Li, why not try it? Could it really be as I expected? He was killed by you?" Empress Lu sternly pointed in Duan Yu's direction, her sunken eyes revealing a hostile glint. Duan Yu glanced at her expressionlessly and couldn't resist clicking his tongue. With such a lack of talent in acting, what was the point of acting? The provocation didn't seem to be a provocation, and the bitter love play didn't seem to be a bitter love play. Watching it, it felt particularly out of place. "I don't have what the Empress is talking about." "No? Of course there was." In the ring that Jojo had given him, there was an excellent black-patterned soul-restoring pill. This saint medicine was naturally stored away by him. Would he use it on Rong Li? Not to mention that Rong Li had already turned into ashes. Even if he really had a corpse, how could he deserve it? What's more, the drowned corpse in front of him was only a death row prisoner. It was not Rong Li at all. It was just a disguise. She couldn't even recognize her own son. A mocking smile surfaced on Duan Yu's lips. She hugged and howled for so long, yet she couldn't even tell who the person in her arms was. How could it not be ironic? Chapter 4130. She even kept saying that she wanted to ask for a soul-returning pill for her son. "Truly sorry, but unfortunately, your son has already fused with the dust. Even if he ate 8 or 10 soul-returning pills, he wouldn't be able to return his soul or come back to life." Duan Yu aloofly swept Empress Lu a glance and said coldly, "What are you still standing there for? The Empress is unwell, so help her back to Renchuan Palace." "No, I won't go." Empress Lu shouted harshly and suddenly threw herself at Duan Yu's feet. "Rong Li, are you going to leave him to die like this? This is your eldest brother. Is your eldest brother's life merely an ant in your eyes?" Empress Lu angrily said in a threatening manner, "You must have a soul-returning pill on you. This pill doesn't have much use for the current you, right? Why are you unwilling to use this soul-returning pill to save your eldest brother?" Duan Yu gave her a mocking smile. He didn't speak, but everyone around him felt the heavy atmosphere pressing down on their hearts, making it hard for them to breathe. "Rong Li," Empress Lu bellowed angrily, "take it as this royal one begging you." "Begging?" Duan Yu swept her a glance, a cold glint in his eyes. "What kind of attitude are you using to beg me?" He coldly swept that woman a glance. "Now you want to beg him? Then what were you doing before? Could it be that only your son's life was important, but his mother's life wasn't?" Duan Yu took a deep breath and firmly suppressed the raging hatred in his heart. Right, this was revenge. Moreover, this revenge was only the beginning. If she couldn't stand it now, then how could she continue living in the future? His cold and heavy eyes gazed deeply at Empress Lu. His cold voice abruptly rang in Empress Lu's ears. I don't have a soul-returning pill. Even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you. Empress Lu's entire body fell limply to the ground. All of a sudden, it was as if the air in her chest was completely blocked, unable to come out or go down. She abruptly opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Your Majesty the Empress! All the royal maids and eunuchs shrieked. The expressions of Prince Li, Prince Rui, and the other princes also changed slightly. Empress, why are you doing this? Prince Qing's round face showed a hint of hesitation. Looking at the Empress's current state, he could not bear to see her like this. In the past, the Empress had the support of the Lu family. How could she have fallen to such a helpless state? King Qing. The Empress cried so much that her makeup was all ruined. She cried to the heavens and wiped away her tears. She no longer had the majesty of an empress. Prince of Qing, please help me persuade the Crown Prince. I'm sure you know the relationship between the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess of Shenzhou. It's as easy as lifting a finger for the Crown Prince. The Prince of Qing looked at the sullen Duan Yu before looking at the Empress. Empress, you're truly making things too difficult for this old official. This matter is also very difficult for your Highness. Now that His Highness the Crown Prince is about to ascend the throne, there are many things that need to be dealt with. The Prince of Qing said with a troubled expression, moreover, speaking of which, that resurrection pill is only a legendary pill. Whether it can really bring someone back from the dead is another matter, isn't it? It's not. Empress Lu sharply interrupted the Prince of Qing. Her eyes were bloodshot as she glared at the other party and said, it's true. The resurrection pill's effects are real. Chapter 41:31. Otherwise, how could the Empress of the Divine Province really come back from the dead? Prince Qing became increasingly troubled. Then let's just say it's true. But the production of this soul-returning pill must be very difficult. This isn't cabbage that can be found on the streets. If you say you want it, they can give it to you immediately? Moreover, with your friendship with the Crown Prince, it's already benevolent of the Crown Prince to not trample on you a few more times. Why do you still have the face to ask for it? Prince, you must help me, you must help me. Don't be anxious, Empress. The old Prince Qing, who was used to smoothing things over, sighed helplessly. How about this? Let's write a letter to the Emperor of the Divine Province and see if we can purchase a soul-returning pill from their Crown Princess. What do you think? Empress Lu looked sharply in Duan Yu's direction. He must have a faster way of contacting people. This he definitely has a way, but isn't this old official giving you a way out? Why do you still insist on harping on the Crown Prince? Don't you see that person's icy expression, heartless and indifferent, completely disregarding you? With his personality, how could he help you send a message to the Crown Princess of the Divine Province to ask for some soul-returning pill for Rong Li, this dethroned Crown Prince? Isn't this a joke? Prince Qing still wanted to say something, but Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, stepped forward and pulled his father back. All right, father, it's faster to have the Ministry of Rights supervise the matter of requesting the soul-returning pill from the Crown Princess of the Divine Province. Ministry of Rights? The Empress's voice rose an octave. Wouldn't it take a month for the Ministry of Rights to send an official letter to the Divine Province and back? By then, wouldn't it be too late? You just won't help me, is that it? Empress Lu shrieked. Prince Qing's heir, Rong Qing, said aloofly, the Empress is mistaken. Since the Empress knows about the soul-returning pill, then you must also be aware of it. The Empress of the Divine Province passed away more than a decade ago, but she could still wake up without any side effects after taking the soul-returning pill. Evidently, this soul-returning pill doesn't have any effect on the human body. Rong Qing said aloofly, in that case, why is your Majesty the Empress in such a hurry? You. The Empress couldn't refute a single word. On the other hand, Prince Li of the first rank and Prince Rui of the first rank nodded at the same time. With a stern expression, they reprimanded, Empress, what the prince said is extremely reasonable. How about this? You go back to Inshan Palace and wait for the news. Don't come out for a few days. Empress Lu's entire face was twisted. She took a deep breath and said in a shrill voice, "As the Empress of the Middle Palace, how can this Empress not co-host such a major event as the Crown Prince's ascension to the throne?" Duan Yu's icy gaze swept over her, but he did not say anything. He merely waved his hand and said, "Escort the Empress back to the palace first." A series of palace maids and mamas swarmed up, surrounding the Empress, whose expression suddenly changed, and went to the Renchuan Palace. Let go. Empress Lu was at her wit's end. These eunuchs and palace maids seemed to have all been bribed by that bastard crown prince. None of them were of one mind. "What about Mi Hung? Where's Mi Hung?" Empress Lu said angrily. "Go away. Have Mi Hung serve this Empress. Reporting to Your Majesty the Empress, Sister Mi Hung went to the Sijin room today and has yet to return." Chapter 41-32. Go away. Who are you people? Why have I never seen you before? Empress Lu yelled as she was shoved away. Prince Li of the first rank and Prince Rui looked back and shook their heads speechlessly. This Empress's temperament truly left them speechless. Things had already developed to this extent. Instead of living her days properly, she kept jumping up and down to find trouble with the crown prince. Could it be that she couldn't recognize the current situation? "Your Highness." Prince Qing hastily curtsied and said with a smile, "Let's go to the study to discuss the coronation." Duan Yu nodded and glanced at the corpse lying next to the ice-cold pool. "Send the corpse to the Ministry of Rites." If there are any signs of mutation, Duan Yu muttered to himself for a few seconds before coldly ordering, "Burn it." The royal guards bowed and left to carry out the order. The prince's hearts trembled slightly, and they immediately shuddered with fear. This crown prince seemed to be even more decisive than before nighttime. Duan Yu left the study and walked towards the side chamber. Naturally, Ying followed closely behind him. After walking silently for a while, Shadow suddenly asked, "Your Highness must be tired from today. Go back and rest first." Duan Yu stopped and took out the jade messenger talisman from his inner world. He looked down at it. There was a small line of words, "Are you well? We were all very worried about you." A faint smile surfaced on his lips, and he took out a talisman pen to write on it. "I'm very well. However, Royal Father suddenly passed away, so I'm afraid this trip will be delayed. I can't come to the academy for the time being." Just as he was about to put away that jade messenger talisman, he suddenly felt a flicker of light sweep past it. The little stoic's reply actually came so quickly, "It's good that you're fine. Then you should take care of your matters. We'll come find you later." The little fellow must have been paying attention to the jade messenger talisman the entire day for her to reply so quickly. Otherwise, with the little lady's personality, who knew how many days it would take for her to notice the message after she tossed the jade messenger talisman into her inner world? Warmth flowed through Duan Yu's heart. He tightly gripped that jade messenger talisman in his hand and stood there silently for a long time. Until Shadow whispered into his ear, "Your Highness? Is there anything wrong?" Only then did Duan Yu return to his senses. He shook his head with a smile and said, "Let's go to Benevolence Palace." Ying frowned and said disapprovingly, "Your Highness, you are already very tired today." "Yeah, I'm fine." Duan Yu smiled faintly, his tone apathetic. "I don't want to waste any more time with that person. How could such a precious thing like time be wasted on such a person?" Duan Yu's eyes gazed deeply at the dark and gloomy sky in the distance, and his lips curled into a mocking smile. "Let's go to Renchuan Palace." In the end, Ying didn't say anything. He sighed faintly and followed His Highness to the direction of Renchuan Palace. If this matter could be settled today, the Crown Prince would be able to calm down and deal with the matters related to his ascension. That's right, the Crown Prince shouldn't be disturbed by such trivial matters at this time. Her footsteps sped up as she followed Duan Yu all the way to Benevolence Palace. Renchuan Palace was Empress Lu's bedroom. It was originally a dignified, imposing, solemn, and elegant palace. But ever since the Empress was grounded and had nothing to do all day, she would throw around and fight in the palace. Chapter 4133. It could be said that there wasn't a single good item in the entire palace. Stepping inside, it was truly a scene of ruins and disorder. Meanwhile, Empress Lu was currently sitting on the only bed that could be considered clean as she panted slightly. After her repeated smashing and smashing, Benevolence Palace's furnishings had fallen from its previous grandeur and exquisiteness to the present state where only some ordinary items were placed. Even if Her Majesty the Empress wanted to smash, she could do as she pleased. In any case, they weren't worth much. Today, Her Majesty the Empress had smashed another round. When Duan Yu led Aang into the palace, Senior Royal Maid Mi Hung was currently having some junior eunuchs and junior royal maids tidy up the dilapidated items on the ground. Mi Hung was currently standing beside the Empress with a bent back as she quietly consoled her. The Empress's anger that had originally subsided rapidly flared up again when she looked up and saw Duan Yu. She gloomily glared at Duan Yu with a pair of cold and heavy eyes as she angrily demanded, "You still dare to come? Why wouldn't we dare to come?" Duan Yu gave her a mocking smile and waved his hand. "All of you withdraw." "Who dares?" Empress Lu shrieked. Her bloodshot eyes instantly widened to the size of copper bells as she glared fixedly at Duan Yu in front of her. "All of you withdraw." Duan Yu repeated again. The junior royal maids and eunuchs hurriedly prostrated themselves on the ground and said, "Yes." Empress Lu angrily and bitterly scolded their retreating figures, "A bunch of dog-like servants. Who exactly is your master? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look. All of you, come back here. This Empress didn't order you to withdraw, so which one of you dares to disobey this Empress's decree? You also leave." Duan Yu coldly interrupted the Empress's scolding as he coldly stared at Mi Hung, who was standing next to the Empress with her head lowered. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, this servant is Her Majesty the Empress's personal senior royal maid. If Her Majesty the Empress doesn't order this servant to leave, this servant naturally cannot leave." "Ing." Duan Yu didn't quarrel with her and merely called out dryly. Ing instantly understood and rushed forward. He picked up senior royal maid Mi Heng and walked outside. Mi Heng instantly shouted in horror, "You? What are you doing? Your Highness the Crown Prince. You can't treat the Empress like that. She is your official mother after all. Your Highness, Your Highness." Her scream did not reach Duan Yu's ears, and Duan Yu quickly brushed her voice to the back of his mind. She looked coldly at Empress Lu in front of her and said with a smile, "What a loyal maid. What do you think, Empress?" Empress Lu looked around the main hall. Only she and Duan Yu were present, so she was naturally well aware of Duan Yu's strength. At this moment, she finally couldn't help but feel afraid. You unfilial son, what are you trying to do?" Empress Lu said angrily. "Unfilial son?" Duan Yu smiled noncommittally. "If your father in the underworld knew that you, an unfilial son, treated your official mother like this less than a day after his death, do you think His Majesty would be so angry that he would come back from the underworld to find you? Imperial father? Do you think Imperial father will really care about these messy things?" Duan Yu countered with a smile, "Do you think if Imperial father could care about this matter, your Lu family would really suffer a calamity of extermination?" Empress Lu shrieked harshly, "It really was you. It really was you. You unfilial son, unfilial son." Chapter 4134. You actually dared to treat your own official mother like this. If the heavens knew, you would be struck by lightning. A palm wind fiercely landed on Empress Lu's face, sending her flying and crashing heavily onto the bed. Empress Lu was instantly stupefied from the blow. She only felt a scorching pain on her cheeks, which made her so angry that she couldn't stop trembling. You unfilial son. Unfilial son. Duan Yu glanced at her with a sneer. "Your son died in the pond long ago. Who are you calling now?" "You." Empress Lu's lips trembled. "My mother is only one person." Duan Yu glanced at her mockingly. "You're not worthy." Pfft. Empress Lu was so angry that she spat out a mouthful of blood. Duan Yu looked at her mockingly. "Don't die from vomiting blood. Don't worry, your good days have just begun." You really did it, you did it? Empress Lu struggled to sit up on the bed. Her cold and malicious eyes stared fixedly at Duan Yu as she demanded sternly, Why? Why? Did you lose your memory, your majesty? You really don't know why our mother died? Did you think that there would be no trace of it after having someone poison the soul-devouring flower into the rouge that my mother usually used? My mother's fingernails were infected with the soul-devouring flower's poison, Duan Yu said mildly as he lowered his gaze. The Empress's eyes abruptly widened, and she almost couldn't adjust her facial expression for a moment. She was actually discovered? I heard that the Empress has several physicians by her side, and she also usually teaches the head royal maid Mi Hung some common medicinal and medical knowledge? The Empress's method is truly impressive. Even if cultivators came to investigate, they wouldn't connect the dots by poisoning a mortal with the soul-devouring flower. That's because this soul-devouring flower is too common. Some female cultivators even specially use it to concoct perfume, and its fragrance assails the nostrils. Who would have thought that this kind of thing that is completely useless to cultivators would be a slow-acting poison to normal people? Bring him in, Duan Yu coldly ordered. Suddenly, a whimpering sound came from the entrance of the palace. An old nanny with long hair draped over her shoulders and a frightened expression was pushed in from the outside. She knelt heavily on the ground. The elderly nanny stared at Duan Yu in horror. She didn't dare to speak and started kowtowing to him first. Who would have thought that Mother Lin, who had served my mother for so many years, would be bribed by the Empress when she just came to the divine land? For half a year, Madame Lin has been poisoning my mother. Let the poison seep into her body bit by bit until it explodes at a certain point. Nanny Lin was trembling nonstop as she looked at Duan Yu with a pleading expression. Your Highness, this old servant also had no choice. This old servant didn't want to betray Her Majesty. When my granddaughter arrived in the divine land, she was controlled by the Empress's people. This old servant had no other choice. This old servant was forced to do so. Duan Yu looked at her with a sneer. Your entire family must die. Nanny Lin collapsed to the ground at once, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. No, Your Highness, no. My family is innocent. What right do a traitorous servant have to negotiate terms with us? Duan Yu raised his hand, and Ing immediately led people to drag that old biddy out. Oh, trying to adjust the time. Chapter 4135. Even through the thick palace doors, they could still hear Nanny Lin's shrill and frantic screams and curses. But soon that voice completely stopped. Even the dozen or so sobbing voices outside all quieted down. The stagnant water was silent. Empress Lu's pupils contracted as she stared at Duan Yu in horror. She only felt that this youth before her was even colder and more heartless than usual. He was indeed beautiful, but when she was stared at by his cold eyes, she truly felt a trace of fear from the bottom of her heart. You, what do you want? Empress Lu couldn't resist shouting in a trembling voice. A chill flitted past Duan Yu's lips. His smile was faint, but the ice in his eyes was about to shatter. With a light raise of his left hand, a woman in a blue and white robe with long sleeves slowly and gracefully walked in from outside Benevolence Palace. The woman bowed gracefully at the Empress. Greetings, Your Majesty the Empress. For you. Fear and hatred flitted through Empress Lu's eyes. She turned to look at Duan Yu and said sternly, Duan Yu, isn't it enough that you single-handedly helped that medicine woman Qingqing ascend the throne? Now, where did you find this bitch from? What do you want? His Majesty has already passed away. Even if you, Empress, could it be that you didn't notice that this woman's figure is similar to yours? Duan Yu interrupted her chatter, his aloof voice faintly ringing by her ear. So what? Empress Lu was still unaware that death was imminent. She glared at Duan Yu with resentment and shouted harshly, Even if you ascend the throne as the Emperor of Zhangzhou, don't forget I am still your official mother. Even if you are the Emperor of Zhangzhou, I am still the Empress Dowager who is second only to one person and above everyone else. Empress Lu bellowed angrily, no matter how high your accomplishments are, disrespecting your official mother is still a serious crime. Duan Yu glanced at her mockingly. Disrespecting your official mother. She was indeed an idiot for daring to spout such nonsense even at the brink of death. Open your dog eyes and look carefully, Duan Yu said coldly. With a slight raise of his hand, a young man immediately nodded and walked forward. He took out some medicine and small items and had the woman sit down in front of the dressing mirror. She didn't understand how he did it, but she saw him apply some medicine on the woman's face and pinch it a few times. The woman's expression changed completely. Empress Lu's eyes widened in horror. She pointed at the woman with a trembling finger and cried out repeatedly, You? This woman's face was extremely similar to hers. There was a hint of boniness in the deathly pale face. Wasn't this her own face? They were too alike. Although there were still some differences in the details, at first glance, there was really no difference. Normal officials wouldn't dare to stare at the Empress's appearance, so if it was just a glimpse, the woman's disguise was flawless. Rong Li! Empress Lu shrieked angrily. What do you think you're doing? You want to find someone to impersonate me? You unfilial son, how dare you treat your own mother like this? You will definitely suffer the wrath of heaven for being so rebellious and die without a burial ground. Insolence! Ying roared angrily. Duan Yu, on the other hand, was unconcerned. He raised his hand to block Ying, who wanted to charge forward, and his gaze aloofly landed on Empress Lu. He asked with a smile, Empress, how about we tell you another secret? Empress Lu's eyelids twitched fiercely, and her entire body nearly collapsed to the ground. Chapter 41-36. As she gazed at the man who resembled a malicious ghost, she felt her limbs turn ice-cold, and she trembled with fear. What do you want to say? Empress Lu's lips quivered, and she suddenly felt that her voice was very dry. Duan Yu smiled faintly at her. That smile was truly peerlessly beautiful. Unfortunately, how could the Empress see that handsomeness? Only fear and panic were left in her eyes. Your son, Rong Li, has already died long ago. The Empress's heart shuddered violently, and she retorted coldly, I know, he drowned in the pond. You sent someone to do it, right? You're a wolf with wild ambitions. My Li has already been crippled, so how could he block your path? Why won't you even let off a dethroned crown prince? Such a ruthless heart. It's not like that. Duan Yu murmured softly with a deep smile. Your son, Rong Li, has already died long ago in the imperial capital of Dragon Flame. He turned into ashes and dissipated from this world. Duan Yu pointed at the dust on the ground and said with a smile, Resurrection pill? I naturally have it. But your son doesn't need it at all. Duan Yu took a step forward and murmured, He has already died long ago, and his soul and soul have been obliterated. Following his words, Empress Lu's eyes nearly oozed blood. She stared fixedly at the malicious ghost in front of her and roared, but she couldn't spit out a single word. Does it hurt? Duan Yu placed his hand on his chest and gazed at her coolly. It hurts a lot, right? Don't worry, the pain you inflicted on us back then. Us will return it all to you. Empress Lu was truly so infuriated that she spat out a mouthful of blood, and her entire person instantly wilted. Duan Yu raised his hand and had the woman dressed like the Empress stand up before gracefully walking 2 rounds. Do I look like her? Duan Yu asked Empress Lu with a grin. Empress Lu's face was ghastly pale, and she trembled non-stop. It was as if she was looking at a monster that crawled up from hell. As if it was her first day meeting this Duan Yu, large beads of sweat seeped out of her forehead and rolled down. I had her learn palace etiquette for more than a month. From the looks of it now, it really is quite effective. Duan Yu remarked dryly, She can have Her Highness's grace now, right? It was more than 70 to 80%. Even her #1 palace maid, Mi Heng, probably wouldn't have any suspicions. Your Majesty has toiled for so many years, so it's time to leave the palace and enjoy life. Duan Yu narrowed his eyes at her, revealing a faint carefreeness. You want to become the Empress Dowager who is second only to one and above everyone else? Duan Yu chuckled. I'm afraid you won't be able to fulfill your long-cherished destiny in this lifetime. You want to take me out of the palace? You found someone to impersonate me and even wanted to take me out of the palace. What exactly do you wanna? A silver needle suddenly pierced her back. Empress Lu fell to the ground with a plop. She struggled with all her might, but she felt her limbs go soft and she couldn't move at all. She tried to move, but she couldn't. At the same time, the second, third, and fourth silver needles flew all around her head and neck, piercing her body. Oh! Empress Lu whimpered softly in pain. She stared fixedly at Duan Yu, as if she wanted to bite off a piece of his flesh. Duan Yu coldly glanced at her. Do you still remember Beauty Wang? She was the woman who poisoned my mother during the Heavenly Ice Snow Region's encirclement and was later discovered by my Diao. Chapter 4137. Do you think I don't know who ordered Beauty Wang? You claim to be smart, but you're actually as stupid as a pig. Duan Yu looked at Empress Lu and sneered. Not only did you make Beauty Wang take the blame for you, but you also made Beauty Wang take the blame for you. He even ruthlessly sent someone to kill her. Beauty Wang was demoted to a commoner and was killed by your people after she was chased out of the Ice Heaven Snow region. You even suspected that she might have left behind evidence, so after returning to the palace, you sent people to search her maiden residence. You went all the way and killed Beauty Wang's family of 8. You did all of this, right, Your Majesty the Empress? Duan Yu gazed at her coldly. At this moment, Empress Lu was lying on the ground, unable to move her limbs. She was in so much pain that she couldn't even speak. Of course, Duan Yu didn't expect her to reply. He merely raised his hand and pointed at the woman who resembled the Empress in disguise. She is Beauty Wang's younger sister and the only survivor. Are you happy, Empress? It's time to meet an old friend. Wang Shi walked forward with a silver needle in her hand. Her eyes were cold. Empress Lu opened her mouth, trembling and panicking. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. What do you want? The last silver needle in Wang Shi's hand pierced into the left side of her neck. Empress Lu let out a low and shrill scream. Wang Shi smiled viciously at her. Suddenly, a packet of powder appeared in her hand. Together with the packet, she fiercely smeared it on the Empress's face. The Empress immediately let out a tragic scream, unable to raise her hands. He only felt that his face was boiling hot as if it was on fire, or as if his face was being melted by something. His entire face, except for the area around his eyes, had sunk into the inferno of hell. It was too fucking painful. The Empress' limbs trembled on the ground, and her screams became softer and softer. If she could move her body, she would have been rolling on the ground by now. Unfortunately, his acupuncture points were sealed by silver needles and he couldn't move at all. Your Majesty, please enjoy your life in the future. Wang Shi smiled coldly and curtsied to her. This servant will keep the position of Empress Dowager for the Empress. Why didn't you kill me? The Empress's voice was hoarse as she looked up at Duan Yu with resentment. Kill you? Duan Yu curled his lips, revealing a mocking, icy indifference. Wouldn't killing you be letting you off too easily? He sneered. Ask yourself, do you really love your son? Do you love your husband? You don't love anyone. What you love the most is the power and status in your hands. If the Lu family dies, it won't affect your power, so you won't feel heartache. You, what do you want to say? The pain in Empress Lu's body was magnified infinitely. Now, she only felt that her hands and feet were numb, and even her neck was so stiff that she could not move. A wooden wheelchair was pushed in front of her. Someone lifted her up and threw her into the wheelchair. Empress Lu snorted heavily. Her eyes were brimming with tears, and her fingers twitched as if it took all the strength in her body to do so. You will spend the rest of your life in pain and torment. Duan Yu sneered at her and threw a mute pill into her mouth with a flick of his finger. Empress Lu opened her mouth but found that no sound came out. She widened her eyes in horror. Chapter 4138. Could it be that this heartless man wanted to send her out of the palace and put her under house arrest? To torture her for the rest of her life? No, she couldn't live a life worse than a dog's. She couldn't. She was the Empress of Cangzhou, the noble daughter of Cangzhou's Lu Madam. She shouldn't live like this in this lifetime, she couldn't live like this. Empress Lu couldn't help but tremble all over, and her teeth chattered. If she could, she would rather commit suicide than live on without any dignity like she did now. But could she commit suicide? Right now, she really didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. Rong Li was truly heartless to this extent, practically comparable to the netherworld ghost's hellflower. Take her out of the transportation array. Duan Yu turned his head and didn't look at the Empress's desolate face again. Was he heartless? Of course he was. Did he regret it? Of course he didn't. Someone humiliated him, trampled on him, and used his power to kill his mother, making it difficult for him to see his mother again in this lifetime. He naturally wanted to take revenge. But this vengeful heart, this ruthless and resolute method. If Jojo knew, would he loathe him? Right now, he couldn't sleep at night. Looking back at the mirror, he almost couldn't tell whether the person in the mirror was a human or a ghost. Was it a night owl or a ghost? When we meet again, I wonder if you can still recognize me? Shadow followed him out of Benevolence Palace. After walking silently for a while, he couldn't resist asking in a low voice, "Master, although we nurtured Wang Nei, we've only interacted with her for a little more than 2 months. If in the future Wang Nei harbors a trace of disloyalty..." Duan Yu sneered. Harbor a trace of disloyalty? Then let the Empress Dowager pass away. He only wanted temporary stability. If the Empress Dowager died before he ascended the throne, then the spittle from inside and outside the court would probably drown him. But after he ascended the throne after a year and a half, wouldn't it be too normal for the Empress Dowager to be depressed and die from illness? When I hold power in my hands, the starlight filling the sky and flowers blooming on the ground can all bloom for me. A faint voice slowly floated in the middle of the night. The group of black-clothed youths behind him instantly knelt on one knee and cupped their hands in unison. "We swear allegiance to His Highness the Crown Prince's life." The light and shadow of the teleportation flashed and disappeared. Empress Lu was pushed out of the teleportation array with a sorrowful look on her face as she wept silently. Looking at the desolate courtyard in front of her, a trace of tragic emotion appeared in the Empress' eyes. The person who came to receive her was a deaf-mute woman. The young man in black made a few hand gestures to her. The deaf-mute woman nodded and pushed Empress Lu's wheelchair inside. In the years that followed, the Empress Dowager stayed in this desolate little courtyard. Every afternoon, the deaf-mute woman would push the Empress Dowager to the high slope behind the small courtyard. He told her to look at the red walls and green tiles in the distance, which were as bright as pearls. She wanted her to watch the new emperor ascend the throne. Amnesty for the world. The city was decorated with lanterns and streamers to congratulate the new emperor on his ascension to the throne. Does your heart ache? You are only half a step away from the Empress Dowager position. Actually, you don't love anyone. You and Imperial Father are a perfect match. People like you only love yourselves. Far away in the Divine Land's Polarity Hall, Mo Lusheng received the news when the sun rose to the east. The Zhongzhou Emperor was gone. He's gone just like that. Bai Wuxia sighed deeply. He slowly put down the cup in his hand and frowned. But calculating the time, it was about time. Chapter 4139. No matter how much love and hatred, they were all just a drop in the ocean. In the long river of time, they would eventually fade away completely. No one could tell if it was right or wrong. In the end, it would be an empty and fleeting past. At the holy auspicious arena, clamorous shouts sounded again. The drowsy Sir Jojo was startled awake by the noise. She nuzzled her small head in her husband's arms and narrowed her eyes, too lazy to look up. Speaking of which, this competition simply challenged a normal person's bottom line. The competition lasted for 7 consecutive days, regardless of day or night. During these 7 days, they ate, drank, and peed in the arena. Of course, the tea and snacks in the arena were provided for both the morning and evening meals. However, they had to pay for it themselves. You paid to enter the arena to watch the competition, so you naturally had to continue spending money for other expenses. Heh. One had to know that there were more than 50,000 spectators watching the competition this time. Excluding the more than 10,000 cultivators, The remaining spectators were all normal spectators. To make these normal people watch the competition for 7 consecutive days and nights in such a noisy environment without sleep or rest, this was really fucking satisfying. Sir Jojo felt that if she were a normal person, she definitely wouldn't pay for this torture. She was simply crazy, wasn't she? She had already dozed off a few times. "Jojo, why are you so sleepy?" the little fatty asked energetically. "That's right, we're all cultivators, so why are you so sleepy?" A female student from the Royal Academy couldn't resist interjecting. The little stoic was actually able to sleep peacefully under such a burning situation. This was simply too wondrous, all right? "Jojo, you can't be..." Qi Xianxian suddenly thought of something and grabbed her wrist, excitement faintly showing in her eyes. Sir Jojo rolled her eyes and glanced at her, keenly catching the various gazes coming from all around her. She immediately slapped away Qi Xuanxuan's hand in irritation. No. How could she not understand the glint in Xuanxuan's eyes? As a doctor, how could she not know whether she was pregnant or not and how her body's condition was? If she was pregnant, how could she still be like today, jumping around happily everywhere? It wasn't like she was stupid, she was simply worrying for her for nothing. Furthermore, who said that a pregnant person would definitely feel sleepy? Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and revealed a disappointed expression. Whether it was a boy or girl, Jojo's child would definitely be exquisite and adorable, right? Would it be a stoic face like Jojo? Student Xianxian was thinking about all sorts of things. Xiao Qiao looked at her in amusement. After being disturbed by them, she woke up half of her drowsiness. "Qiao Qiao, let me calculate the time. Your second match in the free-for-all arena should be coming soon." Mo Lien lowered his head to glance at the little one before holding her small hand and rubbing her face. "Quickly wake up, my Qiao Qiao. Do you want to go up and fight in this sleepy state?" Xiao Mu speechlessly pulled down his hand and glanced at him before asking, "What time is it now?" "Jojo, look at the points on the black crystal screen." "Where am I?" Arbor looked at the black crystal screen in the middle of the arena that was as tall as a person and about 10 meters long. "You haven't even fought 2 matches, so you're probably in the top 100. As they spoke, the host, Nyonyo Duo, suddenly leaped onto one of the arenas and announced with a smile, the second match of the free challenge. Chapter 4140. Student Arbor from the Royal Academy and Hong Shang from the Radiance Academy, please come to the stage immediately. As the host, Nyonyo, called out in a loud and excited voice, the crowd surged with emotions and roars. Half of the people in the arena stood up in a frenzy, waving their arms as they chanted little crown princess name. Our dear Xiao Mu, who had been dozing off, was inexplicably energized, and she blinked at the dense crowd around her. Eldest young Master Qin couldn't help but rub his forehead and sigh. "Io, look at Jojo's rallying power. He hasn't even gone up yet, but the crowd is already so excited." Right, looks like everyone's the same as me," Qin Jiu exclaimed excitedly. "We're all waiting to see this battle." Whoosh whoosh. 2 figures flew onto the revolving arena from the Royal Academy and the Radiance Academy respectively. Hong Shang from the Radiance Academy. Royal Academy, Arbor. Please advise us. Arbor and Hong Shang raised their hands and saluted at the same time, then flew up into the air. Hong Shang's first move was a palm containing 60% of her divine power, which flew over. The mighty divine power wrapped in a cluster of flames flashed in her palm. If it were anyone else, they would naturally be sent flying by her palm. But who was Arbor? When he saw her palm flying over, he immediately leaped into the air and flew forward, receiving her palm expressionlessly. After a loud bang, the 2 people's hair fluttered and their clothes fluttered. They were blown by a fierce gust of wind. Their clothes fluttered and their sleeves fluttered. Hong Shang's expression changed slightly, and she reached out to stroke her slightly numb right arm. She abruptly raised her head to look at Arbor. "You're not a level 3 spiritual master? How was that possible? How could a level 3 spiritual master possibly receive her, Hong Shang's, palm?" "It's obvious." Arbor pulled out a black ferrule from his conscious and suspended it in midair. His eyes sparkled, revealing the joy of meeting a worthy opponent. Setting aside her arrogant attitude from before, this girl's cultivation was still pleasing to the eye. It was rare to meet a young girl whose cultivation was on par with hers, so she naturally wanted to have a good spar. Hong Shang's eyes flashed with disbelief. "What is your cultivation level?" Arbor blinked and took off the aura-concealing talisman hanging on his waist. In a split second, everyone could only see that the little girl's aura was suddenly rising, and her cultivation was rising rapidly. His vast and mighty divine power spread out in all directions. Floating light flickered, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Take one of my moves first." Arbor kicked slightly with the tip of his foot, and his body once again leaped several feet into the air. In the blink of an eye, several tens of lines of fire swept down along the feral. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. They were like exploding fireworks as they assaulted Hong Shang in unison. Hong Shang hurriedly stretched out his hand to lay down a fire spirit defensive shield. His expression was solemn as he pulled out a long sword from his consciousness and blocked the attack. More than 10 lines of fire wrapped around her body at a ferocious speed. Through the fire spirit defensive shield, a series of explosive sounds rang out like that of green bamboo. Hong Shang took a few steps back, and a trace of disbelief appeared on her face. A level 2 divine master? No, it couldn't be. His cultivation level looked like a level 2 divine master, but the extent of his divine power was actually comparable to a level 5 or 6. How could it be like this? Why did you put an aura-concealing talisman on your body? Hong Shang gritted her teeth and said angrily. Arbor lowered his head and glanced at her. His expression was neither fast nor slow as he said indifferently, "To trick people. Why else?" Chapter 41-41. Sir Jojo felt that this woman's question was simply a bit laughable. If she wasn't trying to trick people, why would she hang so many aura-concealing talismans on her body? Yes, they were so many. A level 1 aura-concealing talisman reduced one's cultivation by 5 levels, but her multiple aura-concealing talismans could be adjusted up to 20 levels. She couldn't possibly adjust herself to such an outrageous minor realm like level 10 mystic cultivator, right? She was already being disdained to this extent after being adjusted to level 3 spiritual cultivator. If she really adjusted herself to level 10 mystic cultivator, wouldn't she be stabbed to death by people's gazes? What did her cultivation have to do with a bunch of people who worried about her? Even if she was only a little level 10 mystic cultivator right now, Jojo's lotus was still Jojo's, and no one could snatch it away. The little stoic revealed a bewitching smile at Hong Shang across from her. If this mechanical smile with a crack at the corner of her mouth was called a smile, then this smile of hers was too frightening, Hong Shang thought. Withdrawing his gaze, Hong Shang lowered his eyes, and the sword in his hand abruptly overflowed with flames and expanded explosively. The fire spirit in her hand slowly swayed in her palm, slowly splitting into 4, 5, 6 clumps. Boom! The green flames transformed into several arm-length green eagles. They screeched as they charged in the little stoic's direction to surround her. At the same time, the fire spirit barrier around Hong Shang couldn't hold on any longer and abruptly transformed into a fire spirit barrier, blocking in front of him. Even so, Arbor couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for her. After all, not just anyone could control a full-body defensive fire spirit barrier. As expected of a gifted disciple of Glory City. She was indeed different from those children of ordinary large patrician families. However, even though her dark green fire spirit transformed into several eagle spirits and encircled Arbor, their speed was still too slow in the little stoic's eyes. Too slow. The little stoic took a step in midair and arrived in front of one of the eagle spirits in an instant. She clenched her fist and instantly swung it at the eagle spirit's head. In the blink of an eye, that eagle spirit, which was half a person's height, turned into nothingness under the little stoic's fist. Hong Shang's body trembled slightly as his divine power dispersed. The little stoic smashed that eagle spirit with a punch, which immediately drew raucous cheers from the audience. Amidst these roars, the stoic face once again strode in front of another spirit hawk. From the moment he punched to the heavy blow, everything was done in one breath. That unlucky eagle spirit was once again reduced to scattered divine power in her hands. Hong Shang's face turned even paler as he let out a sharp whistle, summoning the remaining eagle spirits to his side. No sooner said than done, emerald green wood spiritual energy seeped out from the little stoic's hand. A wisp of wood spirit, which had taken the form of a man-eating flower, swayed gently on her porcelain white palm. In a matter of minutes, he landed on the ground. Amidst the cries of the crowd, the man-eating flower rapidly grew to the height of an adult, the height of 2 adults, the height of 3 adults looking down from above. It opened its ferocious mouth and bit down at the tiny Hong Shang, whose face was filled with terror. Fast, so fast that no one could react immediately. Hong Shang was indeed not an ordinary person. With a high jump, she was already enveloped by several eagle spirits burning with green flames and flew into the sky. Arbor's gaze chilled. Seeing her fly off the ground, he didn't say another word and directly swung a giant water spirit palm. The giant transparent water palm pressed down, and Hong Shang raised her hand to block it. Chapter 41-42. However, the giant palm instantly expanded in the air as the light and shadow appeared. It blocked above her head like it was covering the sky and the sun. It slammed down heavily. Hong Shang raised her hands high above her head, but felt the giant palm pressing down like a mountain. It was heavy and carried a majestic aura as it slammed down. It slammed her entire body down heavily. Her calves were heavily pressed and were embedded in the arena. Her entire body was shortened by a small amount. The defensive wall in front of her instantly shattered into pieces. Hong Shang made a prompt decision, slapping the ground with both hands. She suddenly flew up from the ground of the arena. The giant transparent palm formed by the water spirit once again pressed down from the sky. Hong Shang's movements were very quick. Her body had already leapt into the air. The numerous fire spirits in her hands transformed into giant eagles that pecked at the giant palm. This woman had 8 levels of fire spirit power, and her aura was very strong. Those few eagle spirits charged at the water spirit's giant palm. When the two came into contact, red and blue lights were released like fireworks. The giant eagles formed by 8 levels of fire spirits seemed to cry out, flapping their wings and flying forward, roasting the water spirit's giant palm in front of them. A group of outsiders watching the show couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for the little crown princess. In their view, this battle was really too dangerous. The little crown prince stood on a giant man-eating flower that was swaying its head, controlling the water spirit's giant palm to attack Hong Shang. Hong Shang, however, seemed to be handling the situation with ease. The sword in her hand was completely red, as if it was a blazing sword that was surrounded by layers of fire spirits. The sword in her hand chopped and stabbed, making it so that not even a drop of water could pass through. Her moves were also very quick and fierce. In just a few minutes, she had exchanged a dozen moves with the little crown princess. The water spirit's giant palm pressed down like a group of mountains. Hong Shang's expression changed slightly. She was once again slapped down by the giant palm, and was directly pressed into the original hole in the arena. Arbor's graceful reflection was like a flowing wind, arriving in front of Hong Shang in a few breaths. At the same time, that blooming man-eating flower was waving its branches and leaves in the wind. It lowered its head and bit at Hong Shang's head. Instantly, there was a wave of frightened cries. Hong Shang's expression abruptly changed, and before he could even turn around to resist, he felt his vision darken. A serene and refreshing fragrance flooded into her body from all directions. The crowd was stirred up, and there were even some who couldn't help but jump up. His eyes were focused on the fight on the stage. Mother, it was eaten. How could ordinary people understand what was going on? He only knew that the little girl's emerald green man-eating flower could actually swallow half of the other party's body in one gulp. Hong Shang was currently hanging upside down in the air. Everything above his stomach had been eaten by the man-eating flower. Only 2 legs were left, kicking chaotically in the air. Senior Sister Hong. Senior Sister Hong. The one-star Radiance Academy students couldn't help but stand up and glare angrily at the stoic-faced little crown princess in the arena. The little crown princess found the accusatory look on her face a little strange. What? Wasn't life and death in the arena a matter of fate? She hadn't even dealt with their senior sister Hong yet, and they were already glaring at her with such resentment? What a strange bunch of people. Arbor glanced at them indifferently and asked in a clear and cold voice, "Let me ask you, do you concede?" The expressions of everyone from Radiance Academy changed. Chapter 41-43. They did not think that this little crown princess would have such a strange temperament. It turned out that she came to the stage to compete with senior sister Hong with the intention of beating her until she was convinced. Senior sister Hong was their Radiance Academy's most talented senior sister and also the granddaughter of Minister Hong. She was such a proud person. How could she lower her head in front of the crown princess in front of everyone? Not to mention admitting defeat, it was impossible for him to admit defeat verbally. Radiance Academy's Cha Pinchao quickly stood up and shouted, "Crown Princess, my senior sister Hong admits defeat, please let her go." Arbor blinked and pretended to be puzzled. "I don't think I heard her say the word, admit defeat." Everyone could not help but look at her speechlessly. You've already released the man-eating flower and half of her head into her stomach. Even if she wants to admit defeat, she won't be able to open her mouth, okay? Cha Pinchao cupped his hands at her and said with a faint expression, "Sorry, Crown Princess, my senior sister Hong was too arrogant and rude. Please be magnanimous and let her go." How could she be excused for her previous actions just by saying that she was arrogant and rude? How could there be such an easy thing? Arbor's mouth could not help but curl up into a cold smile. Previously, she walked in front of Sir Jojo with her nose in the air and asked her to leave her husband. She really wanted to ask this Miss Hong Shang, "Where did you get your confidence from?" In her life, she hated those who had nothing to do and always liked to look at others with a pair of disdainful eyes. Simply creating trouble out of nothing. I want her to admit defeat to me personally. Arbor coldly stared at Cha Pinchao. "Can you make this decision for her? If you can't, then stop talking nonsense." A female student from Radiance Academy could not help but shout at the two hosts, "What are you guys still standing there for? Quickly announce the end of the competition." Nyo Nyo and Duo Duo looked at each other and revealed a helpless smile to the crowd of Radiance Academy students. "Sorry, your school's senior sister Hong Shang did not admit defeat, nor did she fall off the stage according to the rules. The match can still continue." "What?" The students of Radiance Academy roared in dissatisfaction one after another. "Are you guys crazy? If this goes on, are you trying to kill our senior sister Hong?" If Hong Shang was engulfed by the man-eating flower for a long period of time, his upper body would slowly be invaded and devoured by the power of the wood spirit. What kind of joke was this? This wasn't considered a loss? Why is this competition so dogmatic? "You're not done yet. You're nagging non-stop. So much nonsense." Xiao Mu abruptly beckoned at that man-eating flower. Immediately, everyone saw that the man-eating flower that was originally several feet tall had turned into specks of wood spirit star halo in the air, all of which were absorbed into her palm. The group from Radiance Academy looked at their senior sister Hong Shang with a heavy expression as she fell from the sky in a daze. "Senior sister." Mas, seeing that Hong Shang was about to land on the ground, the two hosts breathed a sigh of relief and were about to announce the end of the competition. Everyone instantly widened their eyes in horror. They saw the little stoic charge forward and suddenly land a heavy punch on Hong Shang's delicate face. Hong Shang spat out a mouthful of fierce blood. She was sent flying by this vicious punch. Chapter 41-44. However, this wasn't the end. The little girl leaped into the air, as fast as a flood dragon escaping from a rabbit, and abruptly teleported in front of Hong Shang. Her foot landed heavily on Hong Shang's back, sending her plummeting from the sky. At this time, the two hosts were completely stupefied. They tightly clutched the loudspeaker and blinked. Just as they were about to heave a sigh of relief and immediately announce the end of the match, they saw the little girl's savage figure flash to Hong Shang's side again, and her fist landed on Hong Shang's other cheek. She directly sent Hong Shang flying half a day into the air again. Everyone simultaneously wrote a large fuck in their minds. Pairs of dog eyes couldn't resist glowing as they stared at the little girl's nimble figure flashing back and forth, gasping in amazement. The little stoic was as fast as lightning and thunder. She flashed, and flashed again, punching, kicking, smashing, and throwing in all sorts of ways. Everyone only saw Hong Shang bouncing back and forth in the air, not landing on the ground for a long time. They couldn't resist covering their eyes. The little crown princess was too savage. After a torrential beating, the little crown princess finally kicked Hong Shang back to the ground. "Do you admit defeat?" the little girl asked with a rather nasty expression. Did this girl feel very wronged? Sir Jojo still had a belly full of anger in his heart? Did a person jump out and say that she had some relationship with the crown prince's maternal grandfather and order her around? Simply laughable. Everyone from Glory Academy instantly recovered their wits and jumped up in surprise. You actually treat senior sister Hong like this? Senior brother Cha, what do you think of this? Cha Pincho's expression was naturally unsightly. Their Glory Academy's number 1 or 2 senior sister Hong challenged the little stoic crown princess, but she was actually beaten up like this and was now in such a sorry state. Arbor raised a finger at the people from Glory Academy and stared disdainfully at them. You don't admit defeat? Come and fight. Glory Academy's Hong Gui challenges Royal Academy's Arbor. Glory Academy's Zhou Bao challenges Royal Academy's Arbor. Glory Academy. Several Glory Academy students stood up in succession. Arbor glanced over coldly and waved his hand. Come. Judging from his disdainful appearance, he completely didn't take these male students from Glory Academy seriously. They were originally hot-blooded youths, so how could they endure such provocation? The eyes of the students from Radiance College turned cold, and they instantly jumped up. Without saying a word, they dashed towards the stage. Hey you guys! The host, Duo, exclaimed, "This is against the rules. You can't come up. It's not the team battle yet." Wait, several Glory Academy students drew out their weapons from their conscious and ruthlessly hacked at Xiao Mu. Several streaks of light's glory tease. She's testit. Everyone's fuck. The Glory Academy students were surrounded by the sand scorpion swarm that blotted out the sky. The scene was as silent as snow. The two hosts' mouths were agape, but they couldn't utter a sound for a long time. As expected, this was the free challenge competition. The fights didn't follow common sense at all. It was unexpected and rather willful. I'm going to sleep. Make up for 2 more chapters tomorrow. Chapter 41-45. Set up the formation. The boy called Zhou Bao shouted. The remaining 3 people immediately raised their swords and brandished them a few times. The 4 people stood in 4 corners, surrounding the bruised and swollen Hong Shang in the center. The 4 defensive walls connected like an iron bastion, blocking the endless sand scorpions. Senior Sister Hong. Senior Sister Hong. Hong Shang moved his neck and slowly raised one of his palms. She struggled to crawl up from the ground and staggered a few steps. When she raised her head, everyone saw her extremely wretched appearance. Not to mention her disheveled hair and crooked mouth, both sides of her face were bruised from being punched. With a head full of bumps, she swayed as she stood there, gnashing her teeth and inhaling sounds coming from her throat. This fellow had clearly been beaten senseless by the little stoic's violent beating. Even now, she was still a bit dizzy and hadn't recovered her wits. Senior Sister Hong. Senior Sister Hong. Several Glory Academy students hurriedly called out. Hong Shang raised a hand and swung her disheveled hair. She gnashed her teeth and glared at Arbor, who was outside the defensive walls. The little stoic stood in the sea of sand scorpions and stared at her as usual. Her eyes were without ripples of emotion, neither joy nor sorrow. Rise! She shouted an incantation, and the ferrule flew out of her hand, rapidly spinning in midair with a whoosh. Boom! It heavily smashed into one of the walls. The 4 Glory Academy boys hiding inside the wall simultaneously took a step back. The entire wall shrunk inwards, and sizzling sounds came from outside the wall. Hong Shang abruptly straightened her body, and with trembling arms, she took out a pill from her inner world and hastily swallowed it. At the same time, the pitch-black ferrule circled in the air before returning to the little stoic's hand with a whoosh. An endless stream of sand scorpions crawled over, noisily crawling towards the top of the four walls. Senior Sister Hong. Set up the formation. Hong Shang wielded her treasured sword and slashed out a lightning-like blaze in the air. Her figure abruptly moved, and the four people abruptly drew close to the center. Their backs were pressed against each other, and the light of their swords intertwined, setting up a five-piece defensive formation. Hong Shang threaded her way out from the middle of the four people, and her figure rose up. He raised his sword in the air and held it horizontally across his chest. A strong sword intent came out of the sword and swooped down on the scorpions on the outer wall. The sword whistled, and the sword intent fell, slashing a 3-foot-wide crack in the arena. Originally, he thought that under this chop, countless sand scorpions would be chopped off the stage. But to his surprise, only one of the scorpions was left alive. They continued to crawl toward the two sides of the crack in an orderly manner. Rustle, 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 the crawling speed was very fast. In just a moment, layer upon layer, densely packed together, crawling along the four smooth defensive walls. The onlookers only felt that this was a visual shock. In front of him was a sea of sand scorpions, extending endlessly. The icy and emotionless little stoic, dressed in snow-white school uniform, strolled over leisurely in this black ocean. A green hairband was faintly discernible in her hair, making her look very elegant. Wall break. A cold glint flashed through the little stoic's eyes, and the startled swan dagger flew out from her conscious with a whoosh, scuttling to the front of the defensive wall at lightning speed. There was a buzzing sound as it tore through the air. One of the four defensive walls was abruptly broken open by the startled swan dagger. Like a shattered mirror, it shattered into powder with a whoosh, and spiritual energy diffused everywhere. Everyone simultaneously stood up and couldn't help but cheer. Chapter 41-46. Qi Xianxian also jumped up and angrily rolled up her sleeves. Scoundrels! How dare they gang up on my Jojo? I think they must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall. Xianxian, don't be impatient. The little fatty hastily pulled her back. Look at our Jojo. He's handling it with ease and is clearly enjoying himself. Everyone silently glanced at the little fatty and couldn't resist ridiculing him in their minds. Bro, you've hit the nail on the head. The little stoic's expression didn't change in the slightest when she was surrounded and attacked, and her appearance was even more relaxed and at ease. Moreover, who exactly was ganging up on who? Could it be that it wasn't the little stoic who summoned that sea of sand scorpions that blotted out the sky and covered the earth? The startled swan dagger spun in the air and returned to Arbor's conscious with a whoosh. In the blink of an eye, Arbor summoned Thunderclap and flew above the five people's heads with his sword. The third style of the ninth heaven's Thunderclap art, Infinite Swords Return to Origin, instantly descended. It was as if the galaxy had shattered and eternity had been destroyed. Substantial sword lights and broken shadows that blotted out the sky abruptly flowed down from the sky. The five people from Glory Academy, including Hong Shang, were all ashen and utterly defeated. Hong Shang was even more incredulous, and she hastily threw out several dozen defensive talismans to form a formation around herself. She didn't even care about her four companions' lives. Right now, she only wanted to preserve her own life first. She already had no time to care about anything else. The sword shadows were like rainbows as they crashed down with a bang. Accompanied by the sizzling power of thunder and lightning, the sword lights sealed off their escape routes in all directions. It only took a few seconds. The four Glory Academy disciples were flung away with a blood-curdling scream. The sword lights enveloped Hong Shang. They directly shattered the defensive talisman formation around her into broken shadows. Everyone was stunned and held their breaths in anticipation. However, they saw the sword lights that streaked down from the sky condense into a sword shadow that floated in the air and aimed at Hong Shang's heart. The little stoic floated in the air and flashed in front of Hong Shang. She guided the sword with 2 fingers, her face as still as water and her eyes as cold as frost. Do you admit defeat or not? Hong Shang subconsciously took a small step back due to her sudden increase in aura. He raised his head and breathed heavily. His gaze was fixed in midair without blinking. His heart was filled with shock and surprise. Who was this woman? How could his control of sword intent be so perfect? The sword was condensed into one in the air, and it could actually stop in midair so terrifyingly. It floated in front of her and obediently listened to her orders? Since you're convinced, why don't you kneel? Arbor scolded coldly. His eyes were clear and calm as he looked down at the woman before him. It wasn't that she wanted to make things difficult for this woman. Instead, she wanted everyone in Glory City to know that those who dared to provoke her and embarrass her in front of everyone would pay 100 times the price of losing face. Hong Shang stood stiffly on the spot and didn't say anything for a long time. Arbor raised her eyebrows impatiently. Looks like you're just not convinced. If that's the case, what's the point of keeping you alive? I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Zhou Bao and the other 3 male students from Glory City immediately knelt down on one knee and cupped their hands. It was us who were arrogant. If we have offended the Crown Princess in any way, please forgive us. Arbor coldly swept a glance over them. Her gaze once again fell on Hong Shang. Her eyes were as cold as ice and extremely callous. You're not convinced? Her clear voice revealed traces of chilliness. The killing intent around her slowly rose in an instant. I'm impressed, impressed. Senior Sister Hong, I'm impressed. Chapter 41-47. Arbor's cold gaze shot towards Zhou Bao and the rest. Does she have something to say? Does she need you to answer for her? Shut up. Zhou Bao and the rest bitterly smiled as they took a few steps back. Their eyes trembled as they looked at their surroundings. Speaking of which, it's strange. The sand scorpions that covered the sky had already stopped and were lying dormant on the ground, not moving an inch. However, Zhou Bao and the rest were clear that if they were to make any movements, the sand scorpions would definitely make a move and surround them again. Your Highness. Cha Pinchao led a few Glory Academy's disciples and hurriedly came to Emol Yen's side. He bowed and asked, "Can you come out and mediate? For this matter to escalate to such a state, His Highness also has an unshirkable responsibility, right?" If His Highness had told Senior Sister Hong about the young Crown Prince Consort's true cultivation level from the start, Senior Sister Hong would not have been so impulsive as to go up and fight the young Crown Prince Consort on the arena. Emol Yen was too lazy to even lift her eyelids. She only coldly glanced at him and said, "You're asking for trouble." Cha Pincho's heart was instantly filled with anger. Although he disdained Hong Shang, this foolish woman, he still came from Glory City with her. Hong Shang had lost so much face. As Glory City's disciples, how could they have any face? Naturally not. Emol Yen indifferently glanced at Cha Pinchao and sneered in her heart. Today, if these Glory City's disciples had even the slightest bit of respect for him, the young city lord, they wouldn't have come to provoke him and find trouble with his wife. He usually doesn't live in Glory City. All these years, his grandfather has been living in the capital, taking care of his mother. Usually, he's very negligent in managing Glory City's affairs. Currently, Glory City has 3 great consecrators jointly managing it. Hong Shang's grandfather, Great Consecrator Hong, is one of them. It seems that after so many years, some people can no longer differentiate who is the true master of Glory City. Since they dared to be so arrogant, they should be prepared to dig their own graves. Your Highness. Emol Yen finally raised her eyes and looked at Cha Pinchao. Cha Pinchao was instantly frozen by the coldness in his eyes. He didn't even dare to move his upper body. The gaze of the man before them was truly a bit frightening. Within his sharp gaze was a trace of chilliness. In an instant, it was as if a smear of ice and snow had melted their hearts. It made everyone's breathing tighten involuntarily. You asked for it. His Highness the Crown Prince's cold voice caused the hearts of all the students of Radiance Academy to sink. It seemed that they had thoroughly offended the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess today. Cha Pinchao was furious. He could not help but secretly scold Miss Hong for being brainless. He had already said that if they wanted to provoke him, they had to do their homework. Now, after provoking the Crown Princess, he was put on the spot. It's rare for Glory City to roam the world, and the number of people who participate in the various competitions is even fewer. He never thought that the first time he participated in a competition, he would lose in such an unsightly manner. From now on, it's hard to guarantee that Glory City won't be left with a bad impression of fishing for fame and not living up to its name. Cha Pinchao took a deep breath and turned his head to look at the stage. With this look, he couldn't help being so angry that the veins on his forehead were about to burst. Chapter 41-48. The stage was surrounded by layers of sand scorpions. It was unknown what the little stoic had done, but Hong Shang, who was originally standing in front of her, was now flushed red from suffocation, and her body was shrinking inch by inch. Her knees made cracking sounds, and before they broke, she collapsed to the ground with a bang. Her head was firmly stuck to the ground as if something was pressing down on it. A trace of frigid mockery flitted through Arbor's eyes, and his voice was apathetic and icy. "Why are you being so courteous? Just stand up and speak." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved his finger and pulled a gravity talisman out of Hong Shang's body. Hong Shang instantly felt her body lighten, and her face turned green and red from anger. The instant she jumped up, she still wanted to charge forward and fight the little stoic. Suddenly, she heard the hosts Nyonyo and Duodwa's anxious cries. Royal Academy Arbor wins the free challenge competition. Awarded 100 points. "You're wrong," Arbor faintly interrupted that host's words and cast a chilly glance at them. It was as if they were frozen by something. The two hosts were tongue-tied and instantly fell into a state of silence as if they were mutes. "In the first round, Hong Shang provoked me. In the second round, Hong Shang's group of 5 provoked me together. How should these points be calculated?" The two hosts instantly understood and said in unison without any integrity, "There is a free challenge competition. Royal Academy Arbor fought 1 against 5 and won 2 rounds in a row. Awarded 1,000 points. Everyone, do you have to yield to evil forces like this?" "Arbor, I want to kill." Hong Shang flew into a rage out of humiliation. She clenched her fist tightly and was about to charge forward. Suddenly, she saw a moon-white figure flash and abruptly fall in front of her. Hong Shang looked up in a daze and mumbled, "Your Highness." Suddenly, Emolien flicked her sleeve and struck her in the mouth and nose, pushing her away heavily. "Hong Shang, you've been expelled from Glory City," Emolien said with chilly eyes. "We will personally send a message to Grandfather to explain this matter." Hong Shang was flabbergasted and couldn't react for a long time. When her brain finally returned to normal, she clearly understood the Crown Prince's meaning. She couldn't help but shout angrily, "On what basis? Your Highness the Crown Prince. What right do you have to slap?" Hong Shang's face was once again slapped across the air. "What?" Hong Shang's face was so swollen that it was unbearable to look at. His Highness the Crown Prince wasn't a soft-hearted Jojo with a stoic face. He knocked Hong Shang to the ground in 2 moves, and he couldn't get up again. Blood flowed out of his mouth. Naturally, he could no longer speak. "Your Highness." Cha Pinchao could not help but clasped his hands and said, although senior apprentice Sister Hong was disrespectful in the first place and made a small mistake, but now she has already received the punishment she deserves. Consecrator Cha wants to be like Consecrator Hong? Floating? Cha Pinchao felt a chill in his heart and immediately shut his mouth. He hadn't expected the Crown Prince to know them like the back of his hand. They had never met the Crown Prince before, but the Crown Prince knew at a glance that he was Cha Pinchao, the grandson of great Consecrator Cha. Taking a deep breath, Cha Pinchao knew that this Crown Prince wasn't someone to be trifled with. He took a step back, clasped his hands, and said, "Then I'll take senior apprentice Sister Hong away to treat her injuries." Hong Shang has already been expelled from Glory City. From now on, there will be no Hong Shang in Glory City's Glory Academy. At this moment, Hong Shang felt a trace of fear. Her face was filled with panic as she looked at the Crown Prince and whimpered. Chapter 41-49. The Crown Prince naturally ignored her and only swept her a cold glance in the end before looking at his wife with furrowed brows and lowered eyes. "Jojo, are you tired?" Arbor shook his small head and thought, "I'm not tired. It's just that I was too annoyed by Hong Shang's entanglement earlier. Instead of fighting her properly, Hong Shang only wanted to quarrel with her. I really don't know what she's thinking." The little fellow tilted her head with a displeased expression. "Why is this Hong Shang so weak? Wasn't she a second-level god apotheosis master? Her cultivation level should be the same as hers, and there shouldn't be much of a difference." But after exchanging blows, the little stoic immediately discovered that the divine power in Hong Shang's body didn't even reach 1% of hers. She was also a second-level god apotheosis master. If Arbor's power was as vast as the Sea of Stars, then Hong Shang might only be a small dish. Mo Lien couldn't help but laugh when she heard this. She pulled the little fellow's hand and said, "Why do you always compare yourself with that kind of idiot? With your current cultivation, it shouldn't be a problem for you to challenge a 5th-level or 6th-level god apotheosis master alone." "You challenged her?" Arbor blinked and said in all seriousness, "It was her who challenged me. She has a good eye." Mo Lien couldn't resist twitching her mouth, and she nodded repeatedly in amusement. Right, it was her who foolishly challenged my Jojo. How can her cultivation, which was piled up by pills, be a match for you?" Arbor nodded pensively. Although pills could allow cultivators to advance quickly, if they took pills at every level and rapidly raised their cultivation level by 5 or 6 levels, then their cultivation wouldn't advance too far in the end and would probably stop at a certain point. Sir Jojo tilted his small head at him and whispered something to him. Mo Lien knitted her brows at first to express her unwillingness, but then she reluctantly nodded and squeezed his small hand. "Then your husband will be below the stage, watching you from afar. You have to be good." Arbor was speechless. Wasn't she just fighting? How was she not obedient? Then he turned around and looked at the hosts, Nyo and Duo, who had already eaten a stomach full of dog food and had a somewhat hopeless expression. With a clear voice, he said, "Set the stage." The ears of Nyo and Duo twitched, and their spirits were lifted. They were completely excited. At this moment, the crowd below was already cheering. "Set up the arena, set up the arena." It was only the first night of the competition, yet someone had already set up an arena. One had to know that the earlier they set up the arena, the harder it would be to deal with them. After all, a person's experience was limited. If he was continuously challenged by others, it was very likely that his strength would be exhausted, and in the end, he would be taken advantage of by others. One had to know that if one could defeat the arena master, they would be able to obtain the points that the arena master had set up. If the arena master won 10 matches in a row and was challenged off the stage in the 11th match, the challenger would be able to obtain 2,000 points. It was a considerable number. "Set up the arena!" Duo shouted passionately, her big eyes flashing with a strange bright luster. Heads of the aristocratic families, young masters, young mistresses, and everyone watching the competition. Hello everyone! On the first night of the Tianyuan competition, just before dawn, our royal school's student representative requests to set up the arena. Set up the arena! Duo's excited voice was trembling. Nyo, who was beside her, shouted even louder than her, "That's right. Now, we announce that arena number 6 has been successfully set up. Arena Master, Royal School Student Arbor." Chapter 41-50. Congratulations to Student Arbor for successfully setting up the arena. The corners of eldest young Master Qin's eyes twitched. He felt that the hosts on the stage were hilarious, facing an expressionless stoic face. They could still so generously and passionately continue their speech without feeling awkward at all. Duo even pulled up Student Arbor's little hand and waved her little paw. "I announce, Student Arbor, the Imperial Academy representative, the arena will begin." The little crown princess was expressionless, even though her little paw was being shaken excitedly in the air. "Now, we invite anyone to challenge the arena master." The arena master will get 100 points for winning a match. Winning 5 matches will get 800 points. Winning 10 matches will give 2,000 points. The higher the winning streak, the higher the points. Defeating the arena master will give you all the points after the arena master sets up the arena. The entire audience was in an uproar. Immediately, some students stood up, unable to remain calm. But very quickly, someone grabbed the arm of this hot-headed student and motioned for him to look at the pitch-black arena. Everyone's boiling hot blood seemed to have been doused with a bucket of cold water, instantly chilling their hearts. What kind of joke was this? Go up and be bitten by the sand scorpions? Now that the arena was filled with sand scorpions, whoever went up would be unlucky. Moreover, just now, even the 5 people from the Glory Academy were unable to throw Arbor off the stage. What ability did he have to throw the Imperial Academy's arena master off the stage? Instructor He Wei from the Umbra Academy warmly and courteously congratulated Principal Yun. Student Arbor from your academy is really amazing. Principal Yun gladly accepted this compliment and was very pleased with himself. His academy's student had made such a big splash, and as the principal, he naturally felt honored. It would be strange if he wasn't pleased with himself. Take a look. Who could be like their Imperial Academy students and set up the arena before the first day had even ended? Who had the courage to set up the arena at this time? Only the Imperial Academy? The Imperial Academy is mighty. The Imperial Academy will win. The group of idiots around him raised their arms and cheered, each louder than the last. Hearing this, Jiaowei Academy's principal Li Xiangbei couldn't help but smile insincerely as he nodded at Yun Piaomiao. As the main force of the Academy's home ground, how could he not be angry that the Royal Academy's overall score was not even higher than the Royal Academy's? Jiaowei City was his home, and the Jiaowei Battle Arena had a good relationship with the Jiaowei Academy. Even so, the Royal School still managed to gain the upper hand. You, go up and challenge him, Li Xiangbei said in a deep voice to a man in black sitting beside him. The man immediately stood up and cupped his fists. Dean. Instructor Broadaxe couldn't help but frown and kindly remind him, isn't this a bad idea? One had to know that the man called up by the dean was not a student of their academy. He was actually the dean's personal guard, Zhang Chunlong, who had the power of a level 3 god-tier master. Although Zhang Chunlong looked young, he was actually more than 40 years old and was a speed and strength-type god-tier master. Green Hair had been beaten up by the Imperial Academy's students at the entrance of the battle arena, and Arbor had knocked Jiang Lushui off the stage with a single move. This made Dean Li Xiangbei of the Jiaowei Academy lose face. He was trying his best to regain some face. Chapter 4151. If this defending champion of the Royal School was kicked off the stage by a student from the Jiaowei Academy in the first round, they would definitely become the laughingstock of this Heavenly Yuan competition. Thinking of this, Li Xiangbei's face revealed a sinister smile. Across the sea of heads, he clasped his hands in the direction of Yun Piaomiao and smiled. Principal Yun, your little disciple is indeed extraordinary, and the beast horde he controls is also quite impressive. But this disciple of mine from the Jiaowei Academy is also not bad. Li Xiangbei laughed and said, if I accidentally hurt your girl, you won't blame me, right? I want you dead. I want you to die 100 deaths without reincarnation. A cold voice sounded from Li Xiangbei's side. Li Xiangbei's breathing became sluggish as he stiffly turned his neck to look at Prince Mo, who had a cold expression on his face. Prince Mo had seen the little girl leave the stage and had given his wife some instructions. Now that he had come down, he heard Li Xiangbei's death-seeking words. I want you dead, I want you to die 100 deaths without reincarnation. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The people around the crown prince sat upright and still, not daring to make a sound. An extremely cold voice faintly lingered by Li Xiangbei's ears, and it was like the sound of a devil that passed through his mind. It didn't fade away for a long time, causing his entire body to instantly suffuse with strands of coldness, and his heart even trembled without end. He suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked towards the crown prince. He saw that the young man had only glanced at him coldly before retracting his gaze. However, he just sat there. Even if he did not move or speak, his aura was still very strong, making it hard for people to ignore him. Li Xiangbei took a deep breath and hurriedly comforted himself in his heart. This should be just a casual threat from the young man. It's okay, calm down, calm down. But why couldn't he calm down? Li Xiangbei could not help but want to stand up, but was pulled back by the teacher beside him. On the other side, the beautiful teacher from the Joe Academy also hurriedly smiled and tried to smooth things over. Principal Yun, our Principal Li is just joking with you. Principal Yun snorted in disdain and turned his head away arrogantly. Who's joking with you? Who's joking with your ancestors? Our royal school Sir Jojo will not lose. Bah. Why are they calling me Mr. Jojo? Yun Piamiao couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Li Xiangbei and turned her head to look at the arena. At this moment, the black-clothed man from the Joe Academy was already standing in the arena in front of the young crown princess. He cupped his hands and said coldly, Zhang Chunlong of Joe Academy. Please enlighten me. As he spoke, he pulled out a pitch-black whip from his waist. With a crackling sound, it swept through the air. The shadow of the whip was like a snake as it lashed towards Arbor's wrist. Xiao Mu calmed herself down and coldly observed him from the sidelines. She saw that the whip was already in front of her, but it was blocked with a pa sound. Around the little guy's body, jade talismans appeared out of thin air. The talisman power flowed, and the jade white light flickered. It was very eye-catching. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. It was really a layman watching a show. They had no idea what was going on inside. It turned out that when the little girl had set up the arena, she had already put on a defensive formation using invisibility talismans and quickly set it up around her. Chapter 4152. This Zhang Chunlong was also a swift and decisive person. He immediately attacked the little lady without even saying a single word. He wanted to use a trick to catch the little stoic off guard. However, he didn't expect that the little stoic had long been on guard. Her pair of icy, bead-like eyes were currently staring unblinkingly at the person in front of her, a chilly glint in her eyes. Crack! A green whip turned into a streak of dark light and whipped directly in Zhang Chunlong's direction. The speed was so fast that even Zhang Chunlong couldn't help but be surprised. With a spin of his body, he rapidly retreated a few steps to the outside and steadily landed on the ground with a bewildered expression. Wow! This time, everyone couldn't sit still, and they all started whispering to each other in loud voices. It's a talisman matrix. The little crown princess really is a great talisman practitioner. I've never seen a great talisman practitioner fight in public before. So awesome, so awesome. I've really broadened my horizons today. Arbor naturally turned a deaf ear to the excited shouts around him. Yet he heard two especially excited voices coming from behind him. Duo and Nyonyo fearlessly rushed onto the sixth arena where they were fighting. Holding a loudspeaker, they used an extremely excited and passionate voice to chirp, friends, young masters, young misses, and spectators. Everyone has seen it, right? A talisman practitioner. This student representative from the Royal Academy is a talisman practitioner. She set up a concealment defensive talisman matrix long before she set up the arena. Wow, so awesome, isn't it? Everyone look. This old classmate from Joe Academy already has a displeased expression on his face. Evidently, his sneak attack failed and he ended up pecking at the rice instead. Too exciting, truly too exciting. I feel that without a doubt, the great talisman practitioner is bound to win this match. They blabbered on and on about the little stoic, trampling Joe Academy's Zhang Chunlong into the depths of the dust without the slightest scruple. Everyone was speechless as they looked at the two fearless hosts. You guys are truly brave warriors. Aren't you worried that you'll be directly killed by Joe Academy's people after exiting this arena after the match? You talk too much. Zhang Chunlong's face darkened. He swung his whip and sent the two hosts flying. The moment Duo Nyo flew out hand in hand, she didn't forget to exclaim in a very competent manner, "Everyone, don't worry, we'll be back soon." Everyone was speechless as they looked up at the sky. They always felt that the holy best battle arena had invited these two amusing hosts from who knows where. They were simply here to be funny. A cold smile hung on Zhang Chunlong's face. Little girl, you're quite good at using a whip, and you're also quite good at using talismans. However, those who are too proud will always be defeated by their pride. Look, your sand scorpions have no effect on me. Zhang Chunlong took a step forward, and Arbor saw the sand scorpions retreat a few steps. The little girl glanced at Zhang Chunlong with interest. A poison master with a special ability? She saw the black smoke rising from his feet and immediately knew that he had a special ability. Along the way, he used the poison power under his feet to force the sand scorpions to retreat step by step. Arbor's eyes couldn't help but brighten. She swung her hand and raised a storage talisman, once again storing the sand scorpions into the talisman. She then glanced at that poison master and raised her hand with a whoosh, sprinkling out poison. Chapter 4153. That's great. She finally had a test subject for the poison that she had previously developed. This poison master was simply the best candidate to test her current poison. As long as her poison was more powerful than the poison that had spread throughout his body, it would be able to seep into his skin, flesh, blood, and meridians, causing him great discomfort. If it didn't work on him, then it naturally meant that her poison was useless against him. A level 3 God tier master and a poison master. He was the most suitable person to test for poison. There was probably no one else in the world who was more suitable than him. Ming Yas sat below the arena, a few people away, in the same row as Prince Imo. At this moment, he could clearly see the flickering flames in the little girl's eyes, and his heart couldn't help but tremble slightly. Looking up at the man in black on the arena, he seemed to have thought of something, and the corners of his mouth were tightly pursed into a straight line. The poison powder that rose into the air was immediately sprinkled on Zhang Chunlong's body as if it didn't cost any money. It wasn't until Arbor sprinkled the third handful of powder that Zhang Chunlong couldn't help but tremble violently, staggering back a few steps. Zhang Chunlong was actually forced to spit out a mouthful of poisoned blood. The expression of Li Xiangbei of the Jiawei Academy abruptly changed. He pressed down on the armrest of the chair with one hand and raised his body slightly. His entire body was taut, and he looked like he was ready to attack at any moment. Principal Yun swept a glance at him and chuckled. I'm really sorry. I didn't expect this old classmate of yours to be so weak even though he looks powerful. Who is he trying to fool? This Li Xiangbei had some eyesight. Who couldn't tell that Zhang Chunlong wasn't a student of the Jiawei Academy at all? Zhang Chunlong was Principal Li's personal guard, and it wasn't strange at all that his cultivation had reached the level of a level 3 God tier master. After all, Zhang Chunlong was someone who'd had many fortuitous encounters in his early years. After joining the Jiawei Academy, he was greatly appreciated by Principal Li, and the usual cultivation resources were naturally given to him. Li Xiangbei raised his eyelids slightly, and his line of sight turned to Imo Lien, who was sitting to the side. Seeing him glance over coldly with a bone-chilling expression, he could only suppress the anger in his belly as quickly as possible. He was extremely confident in Zhang Chunlong. Zhang Chunlong would not easily lose to this little girl in front of him. If Zhang Chunlong were to be struck off the stage by the stoic face now, then Jiawei Academy would truly lose all face. After all, green hair, Jiang Lushui, and Zhang Chunlong were enough to prove that the Jiawei Academy was nothing but trash in front of the Imperial School. On the stage, Qiao Mu carefully observed Zhang Chunlong's reaction and nodded imperceptibly. Zhang Chunlong's poison resistance was indeed not bad. The powder that she sprinkled was one of a kind in the world. It was extremely cold and poisonous. The fact that Zhang Chunlong was able to hold on until now and his body was only slightly swaying showed that he had some strength. Unfortunately, Arbor flicked out a palm-sized thing with complete petals and fangs. He quickly dug into his inner world with one hand and waved out another cloud of golden sand powder. This was the world's most corrosive poison sand powder made from the combination of the blue spirit snake emperor, the man-eating flower, and the golden saint poisonous flower. It drifted out with the wind. As if it had a mind of its own, it converged into a golden silk satin that swirled and swayed around Zhang Chunlong, whose expression had changed greatly. After the little man-eating flower touched the ground, it immediately swelled in the wind, and its body expanded 100 times. Chapter 4154. It abruptly revealed its malevolent fangs, contrasting with the opening and closing of its enormous petals. At first glance, it made one's hair stand on end. Splat! It sprayed a mouthful of green venom at Zhang Chunlong without the slightest hesitation. Zhang Chunlong's expression abruptly changed, and he forced himself to move back several steps. When he raised his hand, he saw a pitch-black, large toad covered in lumps with pus oozing out of every lump. It jumped onto the stage with a plop. The little stoic immediately retreated several steps in succession, her small face taut. Although her adorable small face was expressionless, everyone could see the clear disdain in her small eyes. Disgusting, dirty, smelly, shameless. The little stoic immediately leaped into the air and stared vigilantly at the poisonous toad below. The man-eating flower, however, looked extremely elated. It swayed each of its large scarlet petals and extended its fangs wantonly. This fellow promptly threw down the main character, Zhang Chunlong, and directly twisted its trembling body, pouncing in the toad's direction with a whoosh. Thus, everyone saw a bizarre scene. A giant man-eating flower chased after the toad relentlessly. From time to time, it would spit out a mouthful of green venom. It was constantly trying to melt the poisonous toad. Seeing that the man-eating flower wasn't doing anything serious, the little stoic knitted her brows and took out the blue spirit snake emperor with a flip of her hand. Go suck his blood. The little stoic patted the little blue snake's head with an instructive expression. Don't throw away the watermelon after picking up sesame seeds. That person's blood is the strongest poison. You can do it. The little blue snake immediately scuttled excitedly, and its tiny body abruptly turned into an enormous figure several meters long and wide in the air. With a hiss, it opened its enormous mouth and directly bit at Zhang Chunlong's leg. The spectators numbly looked at the little stoic floating in the air. This little crown princess, not only did she summon so many poisonous scorpions earlier, she also summoned an Arabian man-eating flower and a large snake now. They could be considered to have understood her combat prowess. Whoever went up would be unlucky, right? Fortunately, they had Zhang Chunlong, this old classmate, who stepped onto the stage first and helped them experience the little stoic's brilliant moves. It would also prevent them from stepping on a minefield again. Thank goodness, thank goodness. Although he was unlucky to have the little stoic, this oddball, as his competitor. But compared to Zhang Chunlong's misfortune, everyone felt that they might not be the unluckiest. Zhang Chunlong forcefully raised his chi and flew up. His body spun half a circle in the air. However, he suddenly felt his feet sink. When he looked down, he couldn't help but cry out in his heart. He saw that the huge blue snake's tail had already wrapped around his legs. At this moment, it exerted force and his whole body suddenly fell down. Just as Zhang Chunlong's circled divine power was about to smash down, the little stoic threw out an attack talisman from the side. The power of the talisman collided with his palm and directly caused the divine power he released to suddenly collapse. Zhang Chunlong clenched his fists as a deep fear flashed through his eyes. Just as he was about to turn his head to look at the stoic face, he suddenly felt a pain in his leg. His entire body immediately turned cold as he felt the snake's fangs burrowing into his skin. His blood flowed out uncontrollably like a continuous stream. This huge blue snake, it sucked blood. Zhang Chunlong's entire body involuntarily trembled as a chill spread from the tip of his heart. Arbor stood in the air and coldly gazed at Zhang Chunlong, who had fallen onto the stage and was tightly wrapped around by the snake's tail. Chapter 4155. A pained expression appeared on his face. He felt as if his legs were about to be minced by the snake's tail, and his entire body ached incessantly. Zhang Chunlong let out a pained howl. He glared at Arbor and coldly shouted, "Do you think the poisonous blood in my body is that easy to suck? When Li Xiangbei from Jiuwei Academy saw that his capable retainer was defeated by the little stoic, indignation naturally shot out from his eyes. Li Xiangbei abruptly clapped his hands and stood up from his seat. He shouted, "Chunlong, admit defeat." If he didn't admit defeat now, his blood would probably be sucked dry by that huge snake. This despicable Royal Academy actually allowed a student who could control many spirit beasts to participate in the competition. There were so many sand scorpions, man-eating flowers, and huge blue snakes. They clearly wanted to gang up on the other competitors, right? If Sir Jojo heard Headmaster Li's thoughts right now, he would definitely snort disdainfully at him. If it were you, would you gang up on them? I already said that there aren't any rules in the competition. You're free to leave the stage and rely on your own abilities. If you lose, you can only blame yourselves for being weak and weak. Suddenly, the blue spirit snake emperor shook off Zhang Chunlong and hissed as it rolled around and continuously shrunk its body. Zhang Chunlong revealed a scornful sneer. I already said that my blood isn't that easy to suck. Right now, his complexion was slightly pale, probably due to excessive blood loss. When he saw the little stoic's cold and severe eyes sweep over, his heart abruptly shuddered, and he inexplicably felt a chill. He opened his mouth and shouted, "This humble one admits defeat." However, just as he opened his mouth to admit defeat, the man-eating flower tore off half of that huge toad's leg. Immediately, the poison inside that toad's body flowed out with a splash, and its aura instantly withered. "Stop!" Zhang Chunlong's pupils contracted, and he shouted sternly, "This humble one has already admitted defeat. You can't." Arbor floated to the ground and beckoned with his hand. The man-eating flower shrank with each step and returned to the size of a palm when it hopped in front of Arbor. Now that it had swallowed the toad's poison, its crimson petals were as magnificent as blood. Several serrated fangs drilled out of the petals and shook their heads at Arbor to flatter him. Arbor took it back and lowered his head to pick up the little blue snake from the ground. The little blue snake's belly was bulging as if it had sucked Zhang Chunlong's blood. It lay on Arbor's palm like a corpse, rolling back and forth. Its eyes looked at its little master pitifully, as if it had eaten too much and was begging for attention. Arbor glanced at it with a stoic expression. It raised its hand and pressed down on its bulging belly. The little blue snake immediately showed a pitiful expression of, "I'm so pitiful, I want to die. No, master, I'm about to die," and its body kept rolling around in her hands. Rolling around, rolling around. Arbor expressionlessly took out a pill and stuffed it into its mouth. He raised his hand and took back the gluttonous creature. The poison in Zhang Chunlong's body was indeed formidable. Even with the blue spirit snake emperor's poison physique, she was still suffering from abdominal pain after drinking so much of his poisonous blood. It had to be said that this damned Zhang Chunlong really did have some skills. On the other hand, Zhang Chunlong's heart was filled with fear. He glanced at the poisonous toad and saw that half of its leg had been torn off by the man-eating flower. It was now limping in front of him. Both the master and the human were severely injured. The poisonous toad had just jumped in front of him when it lay on the ground on its last breath. Chapter 4156. The fate of this master and beast duo was full of misfortune. They both injured a leg and had a lot of their poisonous blood sucked out. At this time, the symptoms of Zhang Chunlong's excessive blood loss manifested. At the same time that his mind was in a daze, he felt his vision darken. Principal Li's face darkened, and he hastily had 2 Jiuwei Academy students support Zhang Chunlong down. The poisonous toad, which had lost half of its leg and had fainted due to blood loss, was also carried off the stage. Li Xiangbei faced Yun Piamiao's direction and harumphed heavily with a flick of his sleeve. He then sat back down with a very unsightly expression. They had truly thrown away all of Jiuwei Academy's reputation. A gloomy expression hung on Li Xiangbei's face, and his breathing was exceptionally gloomy. Even as he sat there, he continuously emitted a low pressure. Meanwhile, on Arbor's side, after seeing everyone swiftly get Zhang Chunlong and the poisonous toad off the stage, he casually found a relatively clean place and sat down cross-legged, closing his eyes to regulate his breathing. Duo Nyonyo's incomparably excited cries entered his ears. Distinguished young masters and misses, friends, and spectators. After an intense defending match, our arena master, Imperial Academy's student Arbor, will obtain 100 points for his first challenge. Next, if anyone wants to challenge the arena master, they can directly go up the stage or raise their hand to express their desire to challenge us. As soon as she finished speaking, the crowd below fell silent, as if Duo Nyonyo's impassioned speech was merely playing the lute to a cow. The crowd of cultivators below the stage lowered their heads, as if treating Nyonyo Duo as non-existent. The two hosts looked at each other in dismay. In the end, it was still Duo who spoke. Friends, if no one else goes up the stage to challenge us, then we will continue with the lot drawing ranking competition. From now on, if no one comes up to challenge us, our arena master will automatically obtain 100 points every 2 hours until the end of the competition. She will also obtain an additional reward from the arena master, a grand prize of 10,000 points. Everyone, fuck. In other words, regardless of whether or not no one came up to challenge us, the little stoic could automatically obtain 100 points as a reward just by sitting there for 2 hours. This made the other friends who were fighting in full swing in the ring suddenly feel their balls ache. They were fighting to the death here, but in the end, other people just had to sit cross-legged on the 6th arena and close their eyes to rest and recuperate, and they could actually automatically obtain points. If this wasn't cheating, then what was? Qi Xianxian couldn't help but slap her thigh and laugh out loud. Their little stoic was seriously too amusing. It felt like just by sitting there, doing nothing with a straight face, it gave people a feeling of happiness. Ha! While Qi Xianxian was laughing, she suddenly saw her name appear on top of the 4th arena. She could only stop smiling, stand up, and leap into the ring to begin her own match. After Qi Xianxian finished fighting and returned triumphantly, little Fatty took out a small fan from his inner world and waved it beside his wife. Xianxian, do you think they still dare to go up and challenge Xiao Xiao? By now, a new batch of people had already gone up to the 1st to 5th arenas. Only Sir Jojo on the 6th arena sat there motionlessly, as if he was asleep and didn't even bother to move his eyelids. At this time, a clear voice was heard from the 3rd arena. I'm setting up the arena. Chapter 4157. Everyone instantly looked in astonishment at the man who set up the ring on stage number 3. Who is it? The little fatty asked curiously. Beside him, Lu Yu turned around and said, this person seems to be a student from Tsangzhou's Huiyu Academy. Then, they heard the host, Nyonyo, exclaim excitedly, that's great, students. Another person dares, fearfully, Today, come up to set up a ring. I announce that this Huiyu Academy's student Qian has successfully set up a ring. Suddenly, there was an uproar from below. Qinan stood with her hands behind her back and took out several dozen blue talisman papers from her inner world. She threw them out in passing and rapidly formed a defensive formation. Before Duo and Nyonyo could finish their series of excited shouts, they heard the sound of a gust of wind, and a blue-clothed woman stood on the stage with a smile. I would like to seek guidance from young Master Qi. This woman smiled without batting an eyelid. Without another word, she summoned a spirit sword from her conscious. With a flick of her finger, the spirit sword flew in Qinan's direction. The little stoic finally lifted her eyelids in boredom. Her pair of cold and desolate eyes stared unblinkingly at the two people fighting in full swing on stage number 3. This Qinan should be a member of Tsangzhou's talisman patrician family. Her use of talismans was rather standard, but some of the talismans she drew she truly couldn't bear to look straight at them. Shoddy skills and an unbearably vulgar knockoff instantly assaulted her senses. Indeed, she couldn't help but frown slightly. On the 3rd arena, Qinan, who had been challenged several times in succession, was gasping for breath and had difficulty breathing. Truly, different people had different fates. He was also a ring guardian. On his side, people were constantly coming up to challenge him, while the little stoic crown princess's stage number 6 was completely deserted. No, it was even more desolate than being completely deserted. No one paid any attention to the stoic student on stage number 6 at all, allowing her to regulate her breathing, meditate, and count mushrooms. After 4 hours, no one actually went up to challenge her, allowing this stoic student to pick up 200 points for nothing. On the other hand, Chinan was somewhat powerless at stage number 3. After all, after being challenged no less than 5 times in a row, no one would be able to withstand it. Chinan hurriedly raised her hand and requested to use the ringmaster's privilege to rest for 15 minutes. He needed to make full use of these precious 15 minutes. After setting up 2 defensive arrays around her, Chinan hastily entered a state of cultivation, anxious to recover. The ringmaster's expedient waiver can only be used 3 times a day, and each use lasts for 15 minutes. Chinan was very clear that he was in a very dangerous situation. The problem now was that the 3rd and 6th rings were also set up, but he was beaten like a dog. While the other one was so bored that he kept counting mushrooms. Chinan took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the fluctuating emotions in her heart. She ordered herself to enter a state of cultivation as soon as possible. Look quickly, what is the young crown prince consort doing? The little crown princess took out a small cauldron from her conscience. The small cauldron expanded with the wind and instantly became as tall as a person. The little stoic turned her head to glance at them and directly flipped the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron over. She dove into the cauldron, and there was a loud rumble. Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't help but twitch his mouth. TK, the little stoic went to sleep. Everyone looked at each other in dismay and simultaneously revealed a speechless expression. Chapter 4158. It couldn't be helped. She had already waited for more than 4 hours, yet no one was willing to challenge her. Could it be that she had to keep her eyes open and count mushrooms until dawn? It was seriously too boring. Since no one challenged her, then she would go catch up on sleep. It was simply a waste of her excited anticipation to pass her days in such a boring manner. The little fatty couldn't resist sneaking a glance at Prince Mo beside him, only to see the latter's lips curled into a smile as his gaze circled that 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. His Highness probably felt that the little stoic's actions were extremely amusing. The little fatty inwardly ridiculed and rolled his eyes. Little did he know that the little stoic's actions were simply drawing hatred everywhere. At this moment, which academy disciple currently competing on the stage didn't gnash their teeth in hatred at the stoic face? She truly was a shameless little stoic. While others were fighting for their lives, she hid inside that cauldron and continued to slack off. The problem was that she could earn points automatically just by meditating on the spot. The points she earned in a day weren't the slightest bit inferior to others who diligently fought 10 matches in a row. How could they endure this? The little fatty and the others were actually well aware that the little girl wouldn't really seal herself inside that 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron. She must have returned to Paradise Planet. Not only was the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron's defense extremely strong, it could also effectively isolate everyone's divine senses from infiltrating it. No matter how strong you were, all you would see after infiltrating the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron with divine senses was pitch black. It didn't matter to the little stoic that she returned to Paradise Planet to sleep and eat with peace of mind. Casually tossing a demonic eye outside the arena would allow her to clearly grasp all the movements in the arena outside. Sir Jojo was actually already tired after tossing and turning for a day and night. After washing up and returning to her treehouse, Miss Chiao hugged her pillow and quickly fell asleep comfortably. After she slept enough and got up, she ate some food and drank some spirit tea, feeling 100 times more energetic. Only then did the little girl appear inside the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron with great satisfaction. Just as she was about to open the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, she heard the muffled sound of a heavy punch above her head. Student Chiu Ming from Umbra Academy challenges Arena number 6. Student Arbor from the Royal School. Nyonyo Duo shouted excitedly. Even through the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron, Arbor could hear the loud applause outside. Many students from other academies were moved to tears when they saw that someone finally dared to challenge Arbor. That's great. Finally, someone fearlessly stepped onto the arena to challenge the young crown princess. Arbor lifted the red copper cauldron and waved his hand, summoning the cauldron back into his consciousness. Mo Lien looked at the little fellow's spirited face and swept away his previous weariness. She couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile. Only they knew that it had only been less than 2 hours since Jojo had released the cauldron. However, Lady Xiao Xiao should have already finished eating, washing up, and catching up on sleep. This troublesome child was now full of energy. How could he be the same as these cultivators who had been fighting nonstop for a day and a night? The little stoic washed her white academy uniform, dried it, and put it back on. She naturally wouldn't be so stupid as to change her clothes midway. Wouldn't this seem even more strange? Student Chiu Ming from Umbra Academy, start the challenge. After Nyonyo screeched excitedly, the tall man named Chiu Ming fiercely stomped the ground and charged toward her. Chapter 4159. When the little stoic saw this person summon a long saber and slash at her without a second word, her mood immediately brightened up. What a good man. It was a fight, so it should be straightforward like this and not waste words. This Chiu Ming from Umbra Academy had a squarish face, and his attacks were swift and accurate. The spirit weapon in his hand was a broad saber that was 7 feet long. He brandished it in his hand, stirring up fierce gales that pounced at her. Arbor abruptly flashed and was already in front of Chiu Ming. The startled swan dagger abruptly leaped out of her conscious and stabbed at the broad saber with a whoosh as swift as a clap of thunder. Clang, 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 clang. The broad saber and the short, agile dagger clashed several times, stirring up the nearby air to fluctuate incessantly. Whoosh! A beam of flame shot over, but it was deflected by Arbor's snow-colored silver needles with a flip of her hand. Those silver needles were forged from ice and snow, so they were naturally the little girl's water spirit power. She had fused with sacred wood, sacred water, and sacred earth for a long time, and now she could use them with a flip of her hand and do as she pleased. She didn't need to waste any effort to figure out what she wanted them to transform into and simply raised her hand. Several soft chi-chi-chi sounds were heard as the snow-refined silver needles abruptly shot toward Chiu Ming's face after being lightly deflected by Arbor's slender hand. Chiu Ming's expression didn't change, and he waved his hand to set up a partial defensive fire helmet in front of him. It blocked the attack of several silver needles. However, in the blink of an eye, several hundred snow-refined silver needles once again flew out simultaneously. This time, they split into 3 paths and rushed toward Chiu Ming. Chiu Ming promptly activated his defensive spirit weapon and erected a defensive wall in front of him. He heard a series of soft thuds. Countless snow-refined silver needles directly penetrated the defensive wall and shot toward his limbs and bones. Chiu Ming didn't panic and immediately leaped down. His figure flipped back and forth in midair as he continuously struck out clusters of flames. Following a series of clanging sounds, countless snow-refined silver needles were rapidly sent flying by him. In the end, it had to be said that the shock in his heart spread even more. Was the little stoic casually unleashing an attack without expending any divine power at all? Although the two of them had not been fighting for a long time, the intensity of the battle was extremely high. Basically, they didn't stop, moving back and forth, competing with their own divine power. His fire spirit was completely unable to suppress his opponent's water spirit. Even before this, everyone knew that the little stoic was actually someone who possessed 2 types of spirit energy sources. The water spirit and the wood spirit seemed to be very powerful, so powerful that no one could tell what level they were. Chiu Ming took a deep breath, thinking that it must be above the 8th level. Then, could it be the 9th level spirit water? Chi! After a light sound, Chiu Ming suddenly felt a pain in his shoulder. Lowering his head to take a look, he saw a snow-refined silver needle made of water spirit piercing through his shoulder. The subtle but itchy feeling of being pricked by needles instantly numbed half of his arm. Hiss! Chiu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. He thought to himself, this girl's methods are truly terrifying. She can actually integrate some unknown poison into her own water spirit? If it was purely a water spirit's attack, it would at most hurt. Why would it produce such a strange itchy feeling? Soon, Qiu Ming's arm drooped down. However, his speed wasn't the slightest bit slow. He leaped into the air with a few leaps and punched down. Arbor's expression didn't change in the slightest. He waved his hand, and a wisp of fine yellow sand covered the sky and rolled up. Chapter 4160. The boundless yellow sand rapidly transformed into a giant rock and blocked Qiu Ming's punch. Qiu Ming's attack landed on the giant rock, but it didn't even leave a dent on it. His pupils constricted as a huge force hit him in the face and sent him flying half a meter away. His feet dragged out 2 white marks on the ground as he barely managed to stabilize his body. A sweet and fishy taste surged up his throat. He tried many times but failed to suppress it, and a wisp of blood flowed down the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that his meridians were injured. Both inside and outside the arena were dead silent. Everyone looked at the little girl in front of them as if they were looking at a little monster. Earth spirit? It turned out that this stoic face didn't only control 2 types of spirit energy. This earth spirit, water spirit, and wood spirit. She actually controlled 3 out of the 5 spirits? Qiu Ming took a deep breath and cupped his hands slightly. He took a step back and said, "Your Excellency's skills are impressive." This one admits defeat wholeheartedly. Arbor blinked and looked at Qiu Ming from Shadow Academy. He nodded and gestured for him to do as he pleased. This punk was a straightforward person and straightforwardly admitted his loss. This made the little stoic feel that this punk's character wasn't bad. The little fellow hated people who acted coy and pretentious the most. After losing, they acted as if the whole world had let them down and insisted on nagging her. It was simply annoying. Meanwhile, over at Shadow Academy, the atmosphere was very gloomy. Zhao Yi, who was sitting next to Mu Xiaoxue, sneered with a cold face, "Look at how impressive the Second City Lord's disciple is. Nothing much has happened yet, but he's already admitted defeat." Mu Xiaoxue was staring at the stage without blinking. After a while, she let out a long sigh and said in a very gentle voice, "This crown princess is truly impressive." No wonder, last time in the Phoenix Wood Forest, senior brother Gu also suffered such a big loss in her hands. A trace of mockery flitted through Zhao Yi's eyes. He turned around and glanced at the pretentious Guishuan sitting next to junior sister Xiao Shui in disgust. This Guishuan came to the City of Shadows to become a disciple with bad intentions. Because of junior sister Xiao Shui's help, he was actually accepted as a disciple by Master. During this period of time, he had actually made a name for himself in the City of Shadows as a newcomer. Moreover, for this person, Master had specially made a trip to Medicine King Island to ask for medicine to treat external injuries. Thinking of this, Zhao Yi's eyes once again flashed with a haze, and his expression was extremely gloomy. Why would junior sister Xiao Shui fancy such a trash? How many level 10 soul masters were there in the City of Shadows? Why would junior sister look at this brat in a different light? The Gu family was not one of the top aristocratic families in Dragon Flame City. At best, it could only be considered a second-class aristocratic family. In front of the City of Shadows, their forces were no more than ants. Mu Xiaoshue's lips curled into a faint smile. Her eyes seemed to glow with 5 different colors, filled with longing. Senior martial brother Zhao, that crown princess is really amazing. Even senior brother Qiu is no match for her. Why should Xiao Shui worship such a rude and unreasonable woman? Zhao Yi snorted disdainfully. A woman should be like junior sister Xiao Shui, elegant and gentle. What's wrong with fighting and killing all day long? Lin Jenner, who was sitting next to Zhao Yi, could not help but stiffen. Mu Xiaoxue hurriedly pulled Zhao Yi's sleeve and said softly, "Senior martial brother Zhao, don't say that." Chapter 4161. It would be great if Xiaoxue could activate her mystic meridians. She heaved a long sigh as her eyes wandered. It's a pity that Xiaoxue is useless. Zhao Yi hurriedly comforted her in a gentle voice, while Guishuan turned to smile at Mu Xiaoxue and said, "Junior sister, there is no need to belittle yourself. Although junior sister does not have a cultivation base, She is an expert in the art of mechanisms and is familiar with all kinds of array formations. In terms of studying ancient books, you can firmly surpass others. Indeed. Gu Yishuan nodded with a smile. Zhao Yi glanced at him. Although Gu Yishuan nodded in agreement, Zhao Yi still felt uncomfortable in his heart. Knitting his brows, his gaze suddenly shifted downwards. Has junior brother Gu's leg injury really healed? Many thanks for senior brother's concern. Gu Yishuan smiled faintly, revealing the demeanor of a gentle young master. Fortunately, Master went to Medicine King Valley to ask for medicine for me. Gu Yishuan smiled. Otherwise, my injury wouldn't have healed so quickly. Zhao Yi made a sound of agreement as a trace of mockery surfaced in his eyes. Gu Yishuan was caught in the Phoenix Wood Forest's array formation and was scratched by the skeletal arm. Unexpectedly, 5 thin black fingerprints were left behind. He had been poisoned by the rotting corpse. No wonder he had set his eyes on his junior sister. If it wasn't for his desire to enter the City of Shadows, Gu Yishuan would have died long ago. Thinking of this, Zhao Yi turned to sneered at Gu Yishuan. Junior brother Gu, you've been in our City of Shadows for quite some time. How about it, do you want to fight in the arena? Fight for our Shadow Academy's glory. Zhao Yi said with a fake smile. Gu Yishuan didn't panic at all. He only looked up at Zhao Yi and said with a smile, Senior brother Zhao must be joking. I admit that my strength is inferior to senior brother Qiu's. Even senior brother Qiu was defeated. How can I defeat that stoic-faced crown princess? He said this, but there was nothing to be embarrassed about. After all, Qiu Ming's cultivation was indeed much higher than his. Even Qiu Ming had been defeated by the little stoic, so why should he, Gu Yishuan, stupidly go up and invite humiliation? Hearing this, Mu Xiaoxue also smiled and said, Senior brother Zhao, don't make things difficult for senior brother Gu. Senior apprentice brother Gu is new here, so there are many things you don't know. Mu Xiaoxue's gentle and considerate consolation drew a grateful look from Gu Yishuan. He only felt that the Miss Xiaoxue in front of him had an elegant appearance and a very gentle and generous personality. Compared to the little stoic who would make fun of people at the slightest disagreement, they were truly people from a completely different world. How could a terrifying woman like the little stoic girl compare to a strand of his junior sister Xiao Shue's hair? The more he looked at Miss Imo, the more unbearable his heart palpitated. His decision to seek refuge in the City of Shadows due to the corpse poison on his ankle was indeed the best decision he had ever made in his life. Gu Yishuan smiled and nodded at Mu Xiaoxue. When she turned her gaze back to the arena, she happened to see Qiu Ming slowly walking over to the Shadow Academy area. As soon as Qiu Ming appeared, several Shadow Academy students couldn't resist glancing at him, and there was no lack of mocking and ridiculing words among them. Qiu Ming ignored all of them and calmly returned to his seat. And at this time, the little stoic on the arena had quieted down again. She sat cross-legged in the center of arena number 6 and expressionlessly watched the fight on the opposite arena. That's right, it was Qi Yinan on arena number 3. This punk was almost at his limit. Chapter 4162. The pitiful brat lasted for less than 2 hours and was about to be killed by the continuous spinning. Sure enough, different people had different fates. Arbor sat there and looked at the unlucky brat on arena number 3 with a melon-eating face. Suddenly, her small hand moved, and everyone watched speechlessly as this guy fished out a bag of candied melon seeds from his inner world. She sat there cross-legged and didn't need to recover at all. She just hugged a bag of snacks and ate them with relish while watching the intense fight on the arena. When she was thirsty from eating snacks, she took out a bamboo tube filled with spirit tea and drank a mouthful. Her black, beady eyes moved nimbly back and forth between the two people fighting to the death on arena number 3. Qinan reached out to feel for the talisman in his sleeve, but he seemed to have touched nothing, and his entire body stiffened for 3 seconds. And at this time, his opponent pounced on him and slapped Qinan's chest. Qinan seemed to have suffered a serious injury, and a trace of blood gushed out of his mouth with a poof. His opponent's eyes became increasingly bright like stars. Presumably, he thought that Qinan was about to run out of luck. He wouldn't be able to withstand his attacks very soon. Just as he leaped up and abruptly charged in Chinan's direction, Chinan suddenly raised his right hand, and an explosion talisman landed on his opponent's face with a bang. After a thunderous boom, Chinan's opponent clutched his face and howled miserably and tragically. His entire body fell to the ground and rolled back and forth on the arena. Chinan stared at his defeated opponent with a sneer on his face as he proudly stood on the arena. The originally heroic youth had a high-spirited appearance. He had won in adversity, fought together for so long, and was still able to single-handedly turn the tide. If this got out, it would naturally be a beautiful story. But for some reason, when he glanced at the little stoic eating while expressionlessly watching his show, Chinan felt his balls ache for no reason. Why the hell did he have an impulse to violently beat up the stoic face in the depths of his heart? What was going on with her being so calm and unruffled, eating and watching the show? They were both defending the arena. As the champion, why did he look so much more miserable than her? How could this be? Zhao Yi from the Dark Shadow Academy challenges the champion of arena number 3, Chinan. As the voice fell, Zhao Yi's figure flashed past the crowd's eyes and steadily jumped onto the third ring. Chinan's expression changed completely. I request to use the Ringmaster's immunity expedient. I'm sorry, Student Chinan. You've already used up your 3 chances of exemption. Chinan's face immediately turned ashen. Damn it, this man from the Shadow Academy called Zhao Yi, he was actually so shameless. He was waiting for the moment when his body was on the verge of collapse to rush up and fight with him. The little stoic suddenly raised her small hand. Specially supplied with a bottle of spirit recovery medicinal liquid. After drinking 1 bottle, he would be able to recover 100% of his spiritual power. 2 million spirit coins per bottle. Do you want it? Everyone's heart, which had been calm when they saw her, was suddenly filled with a huge wave of emotions. All of them were cursing in their hearts, yet Chinan immediately nodded and said without a trace of hesitation, "I'll buy it." He was freaking going all out. Although he didn't know if this specially supplied spirit recovery medicinal liquid was as effective as the little stoic said. But outside, I found a lousy computer to write on until my hands hurt. #, I'll make up 2 chapters tomorrow. Chapter 4163. But in any case, there was at least some hope, right? Moreover, he had only lost once. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the little crown princess probably wouldn't deceive him. Let's gamble. Chinan waved his hand. With a swish, he casually threw over a small brocade pouch filled with spirit coins. The little stoic grabbed that pouch of spirit coins and then tossed him a bottle of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid. Chinan gripped the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid tightly and uncorked the bottle without hesitation, draining it in 1 gulp. Everyone, what kind of situation was this? Why did they feel like this scene had become a bit dramatic? The champion of arena number 6 threw a bottle of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid to the champion of arena number 3. They had a common enemy. Shadow Academy's Zhao Yi's face was filled with cold fury. A mocking smirk even surfaced on his lips. What kind of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid could fully recover all of one's spiritual energy? Even if it was a godly spirit-restoring medicinal liquid, it still required time to regulate and recover, right? That was why this girl was simply indulging in wild fantasies and telling lies. Arbor simply ignored the disdain in Zhao Yi's eyes. Ignorant and ill-informed people always lived in their own world, always thinking that what they couldn't do, others definitely couldn't either. There was naturally nothing to say to such people. Zhao Yi retracted his gaze, and his cold gaze landed on Qin. This Zhangzhou talisman patrician family's main disciple was said to be second only to the Qi family's 8th young master. Even if his cultivation wasn't the most outstanding, ordinary people simply couldn't do anything to him when paired with his yellow-level talisman practitioner combat strength. However, mockery flitted across Zhao Yi's eyes. How could an arrow at the end of its flight defeat him, Zhao Yi? Zhao Yi swiftly pulled out a gray iron sword and slashed it at Chinan without a second word. What kind of joke was this? How could he give Chinan the time to consume spirit medicine and slowly recover? In Zhao Yi's opinion, Chinan's 2 million was simply a joke, a waste of money. What? Zhao Yi's expression stiffened slightly, and a sudden change flashed across his expression. Chinan's incoming sword strike was incomparably swift, so fast that he simply couldn't react in time. In the blink of an eye, the spiritual energy that Chinan had gathered with her sword suddenly appeared in front of him. Quick! It was so fast that Zhao Yi thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. After all, Chinan's spiritual power and physical strength were almost at their limits after going through a series of battles. The speed at which he drew his sword naturally couldn't be compared to when he was in high spirits when he first set up the arena. But now, Chinan actually recovered swiftly under everyone's watchful eyes. How was this possible? Zhao Yi expressed that he simply could not understand. Chinan caught the medicinal liquid the little stoic tossed over. It hadn't been more than a minute since she took it. He recovered just like that? Zhao Yi dodged Chinan's sword attack and sneered. Chinan, I think you've really lost your mind. What kind of medicine do you think that stoic face can give you? How can a medicinal liquid that can instantly restore your body be anything good? It must be an evil item. Don't take it too hard now. When the competition is over, you'll lose all your power and your cultivation. That'll be fun. When Chinan heard this, her entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Zhao Yi's nonsense truly struck a chord in her heart. Other people definitely didn't experience it as thoroughly as the person involved. This bottle of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid. Chapter 4164. It was truly miraculous. After he ingested it, he could feel his depleted spiritual energy being endlessly regenerated from his dantian within a few minutes. His entire body seemed to be soaked in a hot spring, emitting a cool and refreshing warmth. Chinan cast a shocked glance at Arbor. But the little girl only glanced at him indifferently, then continued to drink tea and eat snacks. What a pain in the ass. What exactly was she trying to express with that glance? Was there something wrong or nothing wrong? Chinan waved her hand to parry Zhao Yi's sword, but she was muttering in her heart. Unexpectedly, the power of this sword was so great that it almost knocked the flying sword out of Zhao Yi's hand. Zhao Yi's expression instantly became extremely unsightly. He didn't expect that when he went on stage to challenge a person whose spiritual energy was on the verge of depletion, the result would be unsatisfactory. Of course, all of this was caused by the stoic face. If it weren't for that stoic face's superfluous act of selling a bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid to Chinan would have already been thrown off the stage by him. The points that Chinan had previously earned should have all been inherited by him. Despicable, despicable stoic face. Despicable to the extreme. While Zhao Yi was bewildered, the gray iron sword in his hand continuously slashed and stabbed at Qin. He truly forced Chinan to the edge of the stage. Now, he could only resort to trickery to win. When Guishuan saw this, a faint trace of mockery flitted across the corner of his eyes. Mu Xiaoxue sat next to him, tightly wringing the handkerchief in her hand, and said softly, "Will senior sect brother Zhao be okay? Why does it seem like he's slowing down?" Even an ordinary woman without any cultivation could see that Zhao Yi was at a disadvantage in Chinan's hands. How could the other cultivators not see it? Below the stage, more than half of the people looked at the lively Chinan with measuring gazes. More than half of the people looked at the young crown princess, who was sitting upright and still, as if they were looking at a weirdo. Terrifying. What kind of medicinal liquid did the young crown princess have in her hands? How could a guy who was like a drowning dog be instantly transformed into a dragon, a tiger, and a tiger in high spirits after drinking a bottle of it? But the young crown prince consort was still expressionless. When she saw some people glancing at her, she completely ignored them. After eating and drinking his fill, he put away the food and closed his eyes to meditate. She actually didn't need to adjust her breathing, nor did she need to recover. For a person who had been idle for 2 to 4 hours without anyone challenging him, he was so idle that he could just sit there and count mushrooms. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well go into seclusion and cultivate. After all, he blocked his 5 senses and 6 senses. After entering seclusion, the surroundings were no longer as noisy. It was too noisy. This group of people was like a bunch of idiots. They were going to compete here for 7 days and 7 nights, and they weren't even allowed to leave for a meal during this period. The competition itself was simply sick. At this moment, a student from the royal school could not help but cry out, "Hey, look at that young Master Chi, aren't his attacks getting faster and faster?" Amazing! The Crown Princess's bottle of spiritual revitalization medicinal liquid worth 2 million spirit coins is really worth it. Not only was it worth it, it was simply a great discount. If it was a life and death struggle, think about it, how much of a change would this bottle of spiritual revitalization medicinal liquid bring to the entire battle situation? Chapter 4165. Only now did everyone know that the little crown princess was actually helping that Chinan. They couldn't help but secretly criticize her in their hearts. The little crown princess really did things as she pleased. They heard that their talisman aristocratic family and Song State's Chi family competed with each other, and there were quite a few disdainful existences. They didn't expect the little crown princess never played her cards according to the rules. She casually helped whoever she saw pleasing to the eye, and whoever she didn't see pleasing to the eye. For example, this Zhao Yi. They really didn't know how Zhao Yi had offended this little devil to be treated like this. The onlookers couldn't help but feel a faint sadness for Zhao. They originally thought that they would be able to pick up a big loss on the stage, but who knew that the opponent would become more and more courageous, and now he was almost forced to the edge of the stage. The current Chinan was indeed becoming more and more courageous as she fought, indescribably brave. He no longer had any doubts about the bottle of medicinal liquid that the little crown princess gave him before. How could such an excellent spirit-restoring medicinal liquid be poisonous? Your whole family is poisonous. This spirit-restoring medicinal liquid was simply a miracle. It must be the work of a pharmaceutical genius. It definitely couldn't escape. Because Chi Inan discovered that after drinking this medicinal liquid, not only did it replenish all of his spiritual power within minutes. What was even more frightening was it was endlessly replenishing his spiritual power. He calculated the time, it had already been more than half a quarter of an hour. But the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid was still working. No matter how much spiritual power he consumed, it had been slowly replenishing him. Although the speed of replenishing spiritual power wasn't as stunning as the first one-time recovery, it was a slow replenishment of spiritual power. Which spirit-restoring medicinal liquid could do this? In any case, he hadn't seen it in any of the pill stores in Song State. He also didn't know how long the spirit-restoring medicinal liquid would last this time, and he felt extremely curious. "Dean, look." The beautiful teacher from Joe Academy couldn't help but frown, turning her head to say to Li Xiangbei, "That student Chinan's spiritual power seems to be increasing. What's going on?" Li Xiangbei's face had been taut all this time. As if he had thought of something, his whole face darkened a little. "It's that bottle of medicinal liquid's problem." Li Xiangbei couldn't help but look at Dean Yun, who was sitting with his back to him. Did this Dean already know from the start that this little girl actually had a very powerful medicinal liquid in her hands? Then, wouldn't the other royal academies also have this type of medicinal liquid? No. A bottle of medicinal liquid cost 2 million spirit coins. It seemed that not many people could afford it. Furthermore, alchemists needed a long time to refine pills. To be able to concoct such a heaven-defying medicinal liquid, it would naturally take a very long time. Li Xiangbei muttered to himself, feeling that he must have hit the nail on the head. How could he have known that the little stoic could mass-produce a lot of this spirit-restoring medicinal fluid in minutes? Moreover, it didn't require many special herbs. To make this kind of spirit-restoring medicinal liquid, it was all made from ordinary medicinal herbs. The cost was only a few spirit coins. The most special thing was probably the drop of holy water from the little water child. As for the holy water, she could get as much as she wanted. She didn't need to worry too much about it. As a result, everyone felt that the little stoic's spiritual medicinal liquid this time was very high-end. With such a high price, it must be difficult to produce. But in the end, that's not the case at all. In the little girl's opinion, these people of the secular world were indeed somewhat foolish. Do you think that the higher the price, the better the medicinal properties. Chapter 4166. Who told them that those good pills and elixirs required heaven rank and above medicinal herbs to concoct? In reality, the Stoic face used intermediate rank medicinal herbs the most when concocting pills and elixirs. In the past, there were many medicinal herbs planted on Paradise Planet and Chuyun Planet. But now Forest Planet was overwhelming, and they had almost everything they could think of. Unless it was extremely rare, Forest Planet might not have it. While everyone vied for discussion, Qinan took out an attack talisman from her sleeve and stuck it to Zhao Yi's shoulder. After a crisp bang, everyone saw that Zhao Yi was sent flying by the attack talisman. Everyone involuntarily clicked their tongues. How rare! Zhao Yi, this punk, happily went up the stage, but in the end he was sent flying so pathetically. This was all thanks to a bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid provided by the little girl. At this time, everyone's gazes involuntarily landed on the little Stoic, and they all looked at her incredulously. This little Stoic crown princess was too amazing. I heard that the crown princess is a very remarkable pill master. Indeed, Her Majesty the Empress of the Divine Province, who had been in a coma for many years, was also treated by the crown princess. So you mean that the crown princess was the one who concocted that bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid? The person who raised this question had a surprised expression on his face. However, the people around him all cast him disdainful gazes. Ignorant and ill-informed. Could it be that you haven't heard that Her Majesty the Empress of the Divine Province was treated by the crown princess and that His Majesty issued a general amnesty because of this? That person rubbed his nose in embarrassment. He indeed didn't know about this matter. After all, as cultivators, they usually stayed in the mountains and valleys. How would they know so many things about the imperial court? All right, don't mock senior brother. It's pardonable that senior brother isn't clear about this matter. After all, this crown princess really is very low-key in her actions. That's right. Everyone pursed their lips meaningfully in Zhao Yi's direction and joked. Otherwise, this senior brother Zhao of the City of Shadows wouldn't be so contemptuous of the bottle of spirit-returning medicinal liquid that the crown princess concocted. That's right. The other person nodded in amusement. In the beginning, didn't he look at Qinan with a malicious expression and warn him to be careful of the medicinal liquid that the crown prince consort gave him and that it would destroy his cultivation foundation? It's really a slap in the face every minute. At this point, the group of people couldn't help but laugh. The little Stoic sat cross-legged in meditation and had already entered a meditative state. Naturally, it was impossible for him to hear the weird laughter and discussions of the people around him. Anyway, even if she heard it, she would probably turn a deaf ear to it. After all, these people only flattered Qinan because they saw the amazing effect of the medicine on her body. They repeatedly spoke good words for her and did not hesitate to belittle the unlucky senior brother Zhao Yi 17 to 18 times. In terms of character, these people were not much better than Zhao Yi. The group of people below were in a heated discussion. The outcome of the battle between Zhao Yi and Qinan had already been decided. Qinan kicked Zhao Yi onto the stage and pointed the longsword in her hand at Zhao Yi's neck. The latter's expression changed slightly, and his entire body trembled slightly. Only then did he close his eyes with a dejected expression. Damn it, he actually really lost to this Zhangzhou's talisman clan's Qin. Chapter 4167. You're just taking advantage of the crown princess of the divine land. Zhao Yi still managed to sneer. Naturally, he was unconvinced. Who would be convinced? He was supposed to be the winner. Qinan was so tired that he was about to collapse. In the end, the little crown princess threw a bottle of liquid medicine over. That damned Qinan seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. The more she fought in this battle, the more spirited she became. What kind of logic was this? Qinan was also very excited. He held his sword and stood still. He pretended to be very tired and was about to sit down cross-legged. Gu Yixuan stood up from his seat and flew to the arena. He said calmly, "Gu Yixuan from the City of Shadows. I'd like to learn from you." The audience was in an uproar. The brothers and sisters from the City of Shadows were really shameless. They were really trying to take advantage of the opportunity to kill Qinan. How did Qinan offend them? Why did they do this? Qinan's lips curled into a faint sneer. But he was very excited. His spiritual power was still rising. The last blow, which sent Zhao Yi flying, had cost him a lot of spiritual power. And at this moment, in just a short few seconds, it had recovered quite a bit. This was really the elixir of the gods. Qinan looked excitedly in the direction of the crown princess. He was thinking, why don't I ask the crown princess for a bottle later? Even if I have to spend more spirit coins, it doesn't matter. This elixir of the gods, even if I don't use it in the competition, it's still quite valuable. I must have a good relationship with the crown princess. Qinan took a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, he saw Gu Yishuan rushing up. The corner of Qinan's mouth flashed with a faint mocking smile. Compared to Zhao Yi, Gu Yishuan's cultivation was much weaker. Now he dared to run up to the arena. Was he here to humiliate himself? He was so much weaker than Zhao Yi, but he dared to show off in front of him. Qinan's mouth curved into a sarcastic smile. In the blink of an eye, Gu Yishuan's fiery fist was about to land heavily on him. Qinan raised her hand and slashed out with her sword. The fierce wind carried the terrifying qi of a mountain torrent. Suddenly he slammed into Gu Yishuan's chest. Roars of excitement could be heard from the audience. Qinan had actually fought more than 10 battles in a row. Now, she had sent Gu Yishuan flying out of the arena with just one strike? Gu Yishuan, who was flying in the air, was struck in the chest and fell out of the arena. He was still thinking about this question. What's going on? Just now, when he saw Qi'inan's weariness, he just wanted to go on stage and take advantage of her, but he didn't expect Qinan was pretending to be tired. But the problem was, he had indeed gone through more than a dozen battles. So why was he still alive and kicking? Gu Yishuan originally wanted to show his face in front of junior sister Xiao Shui, but in the end, his face was thrown all the way to the sea of forgetfulness. Thinking of this, Gu Yishuan felt uncomfortable. When he landed heavily on the ground, he seemed to have sprained his ankle. When he raised his head, he saw Zhao Yi's mocking face. Son of a bitch, he still wanted to pretend to be a hero in front of him. This Gu Yishuan really wasn't a good person. He wanted to let junior sister know that he, Zhao Yi, couldn't beat someone, but he, Gu Yishuan, could easily finish them off. Haha, in the end, this son of a bitch was finished off in one move. He really went for wool and came home shorn. Gu Yishuan was furious. Chapter 4168. But since he was so humiliated, he didn't have the face to continue being a disgrace in the front row of the audience. After all, the expressions on everyone's faces were a bit strange. Looking at him was like looking at a clown. It was a clown. Gu Yishuan closed his eyes and got up from the ground. He didn't return to the Shadow Academy's seating area, but dragged his sprained leg and walked out of the arena. Mu Xiaoxue showed an unbearable expression and stood up uneasily. She called out softly, "Senior Gu." Gu Yishuan looked back at her with a bitter smile and walked out dejectedly with his head lowered. "Senior Gu. Little junior sister, let him be alone for a while." Lin Zhen'er patted Mu Xiaoxue's shoulder and consoled her softly. Gu Yishuan wanted to show off, but he didn't. He made a fool of himself in front of everyone, and in front of his most admired junior sister. He probably wouldn't be able to recover in a short time. Zhao Yi returned to his seat and sneered, overestimating himself. "Senior brother Zhao." Mu Xiaoxue called out softly and glared at Zhao Yi with a coquettish look. "Senior Gu has suffered a big blow. As fellow disciples, let's not say things that will make him feel bad. At this time, we should be united." Many disciples from Fire Smelting City and Ice Sealed City were sitting beside the Shadow City. Now that they heard Miss Mu's unrestrained voice, they couldn't help but turn to look at her. Mu Xiaoxue blushed and nodded with a smile at Sidyi and the rest who turned to look at her. Sidyi was baffled and turned back to say a few words to Wei Nanfeng beside him. The gentle expression on Mu Xiaoxue's face stiffened slightly. Liang Qingqing couldn't help but laugh. She shook her head and turned back, laughing softly. "What a kind and benevolent little white flower." "Little white flower?" And Lu shook his head and looked left and right. Fortunately, Mu Xiaoshue's hearing wasn't good. She naturally couldn't hear Liang Qingqing's muttering. Otherwise, she would probably be crying her eyes out. Royal Academy's Qin Xian vs. Devil Star Academy's Luo Xian. Royal Academy Mo Lian vs. Joe Academy. Royal Academy's Qin Xian vs. Joe Academy. After a few impassioned reports, Nyonya Duo became excited again. Holding the loudspeaker in his hand, he said to the crowd in a strange voice, "Everyone look! In this round, the Royal Academy will be facing the students from the Joe Academy. Joe Academy, do your best. You live in Joe City, and Joe City is your home ground. However, you have lost one after another, which has disappointed all of us citizens. This time, I hope the students of Joe Academy can create 2 miracles." The 2 hosts were like cannonballs, talking non-stop. Mo Lian, Qin Xian, and Qin Xian, who were flying towards the stage, all looked expressionlessly at the 2 noisy fellows. 3 pairs of beautiful eyes that were either cold or mocking instantly silenced those 2 fellows and made them leave the stage obediently. Without any suspense, he rolled away. Otherwise, they could still talk for a while. "Really? Let the competition begin," the 2 hosts shouted in a loud voice. That fiend Star Academy's Luo Xian chuckled as she looked at second young Master Qin, who was dressed in a moon-white academy uniform and had sharp brows and starry eyes. Chapter 4169. All of a sudden, he felt himself being sent flying outwards. Mo Lian and Qin Xian, who had attacked at the same time, also used one move, a flick of their sleeves to send their opponents flying. Cough, 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 cough. Elder Ku almost choked on his own saliva. The entire crowd was stunned and fell into silence. Principal Yun slapped his thigh and stood up with a loud clap. Good, good. Good. Good, good. This fellow had said good 5 times in a row. Everyone looked at him with disdain. How could this not be good? Could the royal school still have any shame? Previously, they had let the little crown princess, this pervert, fight in the arena. This was already very scary, all right? Now how many high-level cultivators had the royal school sent? Ha ha ha. Principal. Elder Ku's old face twitched and he raised his hand to tug at the corner of his shirt. He couldn't help but call out again, "Principal!" How could he not be excited? Look at this villain's smug face, too freaking weird. As the principal of a school, how could you laugh so wildly in public? Where would Li Xiangbei from the Joe Academy put his face? There was indeed no way to put it down. There was nowhere to put it. It was too embarrassing. Once they met, he didn't even have time to say, "Please take care of me," before he was flung out of the arena. He even fell with a bloody nose and a swollen face, with crooked eyes and a slanted mouth. The despicable royal school, they definitely did this on purpose. Purposely embarrassing Li Xiangbei, purposely making him go crazy. No, he had to calm down. He couldn't fall into that scum Yun Piaomiao's trap. The more he laughed wildly, the more he had to calm down. Calm down, calm down. Li Xiangbei took a few deep breaths before he managed to suppress his anger. At this moment, Mo Lian, Qinda and Omega Kotoku had already floated down from the arena and walked over casually. This was intolerable. Li Xiangbei couldn't help but say coldly, "Everyone from the royal school is indeed unusually cunning. You actually used such a method to defeat our Joe Academy." "What do you mean?" Yun Piaomiao couldn't help but glance at this guy. She snorted and said, "What nonsense do you want to say now? Don't hide it, just say it all. I don't have the time to listen to you blabbering all day long and slandering the reputation of the Royal Academy." "Are they not?" Li Xiangbei said angrily. "Are these people really students from the royal school?" "Ignorant and inexperienced." Yun Piaomiao said proudly, "Our royal school accepts talents from all 3 continents. How is he not a student of the royal school? Let me tell you, within the royal school, there are at least 18 experts like them." Mo Lian sat down expressionlessly, no longer bothering with Yun Piaomiao. Qinda and Omega Kotoku had similar expressions. They sat down and didn't want to say a word to the arrogant dean. Li Xiangbei was so angry that his entire body trembled. He pointed at Yun Piaomiao and said, You cheated. I'll go. Yun Piaomiao slapped away the finger that he was pointing at her. Can you be more mature, Deanly? You're giving me the feeling that you're angry out of humiliation. On the other side, Instructor Broadaxe and the beautiful instructor hurriedly persuaded him to go back. Preposterous! Preposterous! Li Xiangbei sat in his seat and kept muttering. He had never seen such a shameless person like Yun Piaomiao in his life. You can go to sleep first. The rest of the night is before 12 o'clock. Chapter 4170. Li Xiangbei propped himself up with both hands, barely suppressing the fury in his heart. Go and call Bu Yi over. Have him challenge that fellow from the Qi clan. Instructor Broadaxe and the beautiful instructor couldn't help but be taken aback. They both turned to glance at Dean Li. Shouldn't they challenge the Imperial Academy's little stoic crown prince consort in order to regain their face from the Imperial Academy? What was going on? Why did he have to challenge Qinan? Was she easy to bully? Li Xiangbei remained silent with a cold expression. 2 hours had already passed since Qinan drank that bottle of medicinal liquid. Evidently, the effects of that spirit-restoring medicinal liquid were about to wear off. Li Xiangbei was very clear that once Qinan's medicinal effects wore off, Qinan definitely wasn't Bu Ye's match. Even though this Bu Yi was extremely difficult to control and had many demands. But now he was at his wit's end. If he didn't let him go on stage, was he supposed to watch helplessly as Joey Academy set a remarkable record of 0 wins? Look at how unlucky Joey Academy was from the start of the competition until now. When they encountered the Royal Academy, they lost. Either they lost or they lost. It practically cast a shadow in Li Xiangbei's heart. This damned Yun Piaomiao. Just how many peerless geniuses from the 3 continents did he accept into the academy? Did he even have any chance of winning this competition? Although Bu Ye's cultivation wasn't as high as Zhang Chunlong's, as a second-level God-tier master, his methods were more than a level higher than Zhang Chunlong's. As long as he didn't encounter those 3 from the Royal Academy and didn't take the initiative to challenge the little crown princess, he should be able to continue fighting. Li Xiangbei lowered his voice and said, Hurry and go. Take advantage of the fact that the crown princess of the Divine Province is in closed-door meditation to have Bu Yi challenge Qin. Everyone was probably very clear on how unlucky Qinan was when this young man named Bu Yi jumped onto the stage. Qinan felt that oppressive aura rush toward her and knew things weren't looking good. This person's aura was too tyrannical. She wasn't this person's match at all. Even if she was at her peak, she still wouldn't be able to defeat this person in front of her. Let alone in this kind of situation? Qinan turned her head to glance at the little stoic crown princess on stage number 6 and saw that her slightly furrowed brows didn't even look in her direction. He could not help but let out a long sigh. If the little crown princess was willing to sell him another bottle of spirit-restoring elixir, he wouldn't fight with the man in front of him. But now, Qinan spat out the word, I. He felt an intense divine power from his opponent striking his chest. The attack was as fast as lightning, leaving Qinan no time to think about how to dodge. Just as his brain was spinning rapidly and he was about to move away, the divine power had already landed on his body. His brain was still slow to react to this attack. In other words, the other party had attacked him as soon as they had met. Qinan's body fell backwards and fell heavily. He spat out a mouthful of blood. The young man in front of him looked like he was in his early 20s. He had a round face and a smile on his face. He wasn't very handsome, but his features were very delicate. However, this seemingly cheerful young man was extremely ruthless in his attacks. He heavily injured Qinan in one move and eliminated him. When he saw Qinan fall to the ground, he even wanted to take a few steps forward and crush the bones in his hand. Fortunately, Qinan promptly admitted defeat. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.